Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, The Age of Gods. My Tauren evolution can't be controlled. Chapter 71. Inside the bronze door, an armored robot full of science and technology appeared in front of Cain. The armored robot is 30 meters tall, and its body is made of unknown metal. The whole looks extremely shocking. They are like an ant looking down on a giant. Chen Yi also saw the armor through Cain's perspective at this time. Is this the weapon in the legend that the dwarves can destroy the entire sacred scar plane? Then Chen Yi extracted the armor's attribute panel. Destroying armor. Level artifact 90% completion. Type mechanical. Power bonus 1000 times. Physique bonus 1000 times. Agility bonus 1000 times. Wisdom bonus 1000 times. Defensive bonus 1000 times. Attack bonus 1000 times. Flight capability Mach 100 per hour. Mechanical armament World Destruction Bomb unfilled, Frozen Impact Gun unfinished, Shadow Strike Device unfinished, Magnetic Bomb filled, Flame Launcher completed, Primal Energy Shield completed, finish. World Destruction Bomb. After the explosion, everything in a radius of 100,000 meters can be annihilated into the smallest particles, and then into nothingness. Everything will cease to exist. Frozen Shock Gun launched, absolutely zero air conditioning, freezing everything in front of you. Shadow Strike Device Dark Matter can be used as a weapon to launch attacks on the enemy with extremely high-quality black hole particles. Magnetic Bomb, it can absorb all metals in a radius of 10,000 meters. The more metal it absorbs, the stronger the explosion. Flame Launcher launch a beam of extremely high temperature flame. The temperature will gradually rise over time, and eventually reach the level of burning everything. Essential Energy Shield all attacks will be converted into the shield of the world-destroying armor, and the energy of the world-destroying armor will be supplemented. Seeing this, Chen Yi suddenly felt that the technology of this dwarf was too advanced. This has reached the limit of technological civilization on the Skymark plane. After all, it is not a cosmic civilization, so it cannot create more technology against the sky. Even so, it is too shocking. It can definitely be used as a whole card in the future. However, this artifact is still in an unfinished state, probably because it was destroyed when it was first developed. If this world-destroying armor can destroy the entire Skyscar plane, Chen Yi absolutely believes. Now it is time to complete this world-destroying armor as soon as possible. Chen Yi didn't want anyone to know. After completing this world-destroying armor, Chen Yi immediately teleported it back to his plane of harvest. In this case, waiting for the future is definitely a big killer. And Chen Yi also informed Cain of the information about this world-destroying armor. Cain couldn't help but set off countless storms in his heart, but he didn't change his face. At this time, he had come to the front of the armor of the world. I touched the armor of the extinction, and it felt extremely cold to the touch. I don't know what kind of metal alloy is extremely hard. There are still many devices around the destroyer armor, as well as some weapons and the like. These are the unfinished processes of the destroyer armor. It needs future generations to complete it. At this time, the white-bearded dwarf said flatly to Cain, "Warrior, this is the weapon of our clan, but it lacks the last link and cannot be activated at all." Cain was a little puzzled. What is missing? Can it be remade? The white-bearded dwarf shook his head, sighed and said, "That kind of technology has long been lost, and it can't be made now." Just after the white-beard dwarf finished speaking, a voice came from outside the bronze door. Who said it couldn't be made? Matthews and Black Tower had already come outside the bronze gate at this time. Hyda's hand, holding the key in one hand, and Natus in the other. When he saw the key in the Black Tower's hand, the white-bearded dwarf suddenly opened his eyes. The key to world destruction. After speaking, the white-beard dwarf looked at Cain. "My lord warrior, this is the key to the world's destruction that the armor of the world is missing. Only by obtaining the key to the destruction of the world can the armor of the destruction of the world be activated, and all the weapons that have not yet been completed can be completed." Cain was also a little surprised when he heard the words of the white-beard. Really sleepy came to deliver pillows. Then he took the key of world destruction from the Black Tower. How should this thing be used? The white-bearded dwarf pointed the scepter in his hand to the place where the brows of the destroying armor were located. "It's there. I'm too old to climb up." Cain nodded. "Then I will go up." After speaking, He immediately transformed into an afterimage and climbed to the center of the brow of the world-destroying armor. Seeing such agile Cain, the dwarves couldn't help being stunned. They hadn't seen Cain's skills before, but now that they saw him, they immediately admired Cain. After all, such a big man and such agile skill simply violated their cognition. Cain was observing the destroyed armor at this time. The head of this world destruction armor is 4 meters high, and Cain can just put the key of world destruction in with his hand. After the key of world destruction was inserted, the eyes of the world destruction armor immediately began to glow with red light. And the body of the world-destroying armor also began to move. Boom, 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 like footsteps from hell, the whole hall began to tremble. The world destruction armor took a few steps forward. But then it stopped. The red light in the eyes of the world-destroying armor also disappeared, and it fell silent again. Cain was a little puzzled. Then he climbed down from that world-destroying armor. Looking at the white-bearded dwarf, Cain asked, "What the hell is going on?" Hearing Cain's questioning, the white-bearded dwarf was a little frightened. This may be due to insufficient energy. After all, this world-destroying armor has not been activated for many years. Hearing the explanation from the white-bearded dwarf, Cain nodded. This explanation is passable. Then Cain asked again, "Then do you know how to supplement this energy?" Hearing Cain said this, the white-bearded dwarf said, "The Matthews family is the most proficient in this energy knowledge." At this time, Matthews said quickly, "Warrior Lord, I absolutely know this, but now I need some data. I don't know what frequency energy is needed for this world-destroying armor." Then Matthews took out something similar to a compass. There are more than a dozen pointers on the compass, which looks extremely cumbersome. I saw that Matthews came to the side of the world-destroying armor, and the compass in his hand began to flash continuously. The pointer on the compass finally stayed in one place. Seeing this scene, Matthews quickly took out paper and pen and recorded the values. After the recording was not finished, Matthews walked back and forth again, and determined the values in a rough interval. Afterwards, Matthews said in surprise, "The energy frequency and energy attributes required by the world destruction armor have been determined." Matthews came to Cain, "My Lord Warrior, these are all sun spar data, and they are solar spars with extremely high purity. As long as you have the sun spar, then you can activate the destroyer armor." Cain was also a little pleased to hear this. "Where are the sun spars?" Matthews shook his head. "I don't know, we haven't used solar spar as an energy source for a long time." Hearing this, Cain looked at the black tower. "Fully, investigate, which power on the stigmata plane has sun spar." "Yes, foster father." After Haida heard it, he took Natasi directly. Now he wants to investigate where there are sun spars. I don't know if this human being knows. Looking at the departed black tower, Cain nodded with satisfaction. The black tower is now more and more able to be on its own. At this time, Matthews said cautiously, "Now we can restart the manufacturing plan of the extinction armor and wait for the sun spar to be found before replenishing energy." When Matthews said this, Cain nodded appreciatively. "Yes, it can be like this." Then he looked at the white-bearded dwarf. "I order you, from now on, to make every effort to make world-destroying armor." "Yes." The dwarves quickly agreed. Cain looked at the dwarves, and decided to send a group of Tauren to oversee them after he went back. Otherwise, other mobs are likely to appear. After all, the loyalty of these dwarves is open to question. Then Cain left the huge underground city and returned to the mine. Looking at Cain who was going away, the dwarf patriarch couldn't help sweating all over. This warrior, obviously there is no big toad ferocious, but why does he have a terrifying temperament all over his body? Matthews looked at his compass at this time. The pointer on the compass has changed to something else. "Patriarch, it's murderous. It's normal for us to be unable to hold on to the murderous aura that can be formed after we don't know how many people are killed." Hearing Matthews saying this, the dwarf patriarch nodded. "Well, the manufacturing plan of this worldwide armor is about to be restarted. Let's go back and find out those information. I really look forward to what kind of prestige the ancestors' worldwide armor will be when it is born." "Yes, Patriarch." In the following time, Cain sent 100 Tauren to oversee the work. "And on the ground, I have been searching for which power has a large number of sun spars. In the Church of the God of Harvest. It used to be the Church of Suffering and Miracles, but now it has been changed to the Church of Harvest Church. The Black Tower was reporting to Cain about the Sunspar at this time. Are you saying that there are mineral deposits in the territories of the Sunspar Falling Star Empire and the Blood Elves? Yes, the foster father, especially the Blood Elves, is the richest, and the purity is even higher. Cain nodded. Well, if that's the case, then go to war against the Blood Elves, until these Blood Elves knowingly offer the Sunspar. Hearing Cain's words, Haida was extremely excited. Since becoming a hero, he hasn't exercised his muscles and bones properly, just in this war. The foster father, I'm going to talk to Taos about this now. Go. Yes. Chen Yi heard Cain's simple vision of this war at this time, but the war is never that simple. Chen Yi then lowered the oracle and informed Cain of his strategic layout. Cain understood immediately. Then I went to Taos to tell Taos the plan of Father God and the Black Tower. Soon, the news that the Orc Empire was fighting the Blood Elves spread throughout the Stigmata Plain. The god of the Blood Elf camp was very depressed. Originally thought that he could make a fortune in a muffled voice, but now he is directly targeted by such a powerful half-orc empire. But at this time the deities of all camps have been united. A difficult one, P+ support. The War Chaos God system headed by Sui Tang, and the Life Order God system headed by the three classes of Su Siming. This Su Siming was not well known in the freshman competition at the time, but he performed extremely well in this face-to-face invasion. Relying on the priesthood of life, first establish faith in the camp of dwarves and elves of the Falling Star Empire. Then a large number of gods similar to the priesthood of order and creation were enlisted to spread their doctrines in the empire of the burial orcs. These deities are different from those of Sui Tang, who are pursuing the chaotic 483 of war. They hope to develop peacefully. And Sui Tang and the others are in the vast empire, as well as the Chenhui Empire and the deciduous province of the original Yi Empire, provoking war, chaos, violence, and disease everywhere. Those humans and beasts in it are miserable. In essence, the two factions are incompatible with each other. But Zhonghe, one of the elemental gods, had been killed by Chen Yi at this time, so they had already begun to cooperate. Facing Chen Yi, neither of them has a chance of winning. But together, there is so much more chance of winning. No one wants to give away the first place. Some gods have found the goblins lurking underground. At this time they are observing the situation of the Stigmata Plain. Once they have a chance, the goblins who have mastered countless technologies will take the opportunity to enter the land. After these years of recuperation, the half-orcs have already returned to their peak state. Coupled with well-forged armor and the like, the combat effectiveness of these half-orcs has reached a very high level. However, Chen Yi didn't waste the faith value for these half-orcs to change jobs. After all, it is not worth it. Tau talents are their own basics. Chen Yi doesn't feel distressed how much these half-orcs die, but if a Tauren dies, then Chen Yi will be more painful and distressed. An army of millions of orcs, wading through mountains and rivers, came to the Shugs Mountains where Blood Elves thrived. And the coalition forces of those deities' races have already come here to wait. At this moment, they want to lay a net from the sky and the earth, to wipe out these half-orcs, and to frustrate Chen Yi's spirit severely. Otherwise, Chen Yi would be too arrogant. However, all the gods have selfish intentions, and none of them have fully dispatched their own forces. Some gods only sent 1/3 of their troops. But even so, the allied forces of the deity race have reached more than 200,000. With the addition of the Blood Elves, the number has reached more than 400,000. Even the Blood Elves are far less fertile than other races, and it may take many years to give birth to a tribe. When he was expelled from the Elven clan before, the Blood Elves suffered more of the casualties. It is not easy for the Blood Elves to grow to these 200,000. Facing this army of millions of half-orcs, the Blood Elves still have the power to resist. But even if the army of half-orcs was wiped out, the whole clan would be completely devastated. Chen Yi naturally also considered this situation. This million half-orcs are just abandoned sons sent by Chen Yi to die. As for the Sunspar, it is not particularly needed now. Although Na Haida wanted to participate in this war very much, Chen Yi did not agree, because he still had more important things to do. There are now more than 20 million young people who can participate in battle in the Orc Empire. Even if all these million are dead, it will definitely not affect anything. In this kind of cold weapon war, the mortality rate is not very high. Even if it is defeated, there will be about 4 to 5 million half-orcs who can escape back. On the other hand, Chen Yi decided to take the opportunity to completely conquer the fallen leaves. After all, Sui Tang, these gods followed himself, always feeling a little caring. Moreover, the Fallen Leaves province went deep into the hinterland of the Orc Empire, and these gods could use the Fallen Leaves province as a springboard to launch a general attack on the Orc Empire. He was then ordered to serve as the commander-in-chief, and to command together with Tao's son Talos. Nautilus has demonstrated extremely amazing military talents since he was a child, which can be used to exercise. After all, he is also the heir to the future half-orc empire. Cannot be without any experience. As for Sui Tang, they were discussing how to eat all these half-orcs. A deity guarding the war chaotic base camp flew over very quickly. Sui Tang, Chen Yi actually sent an army of half-orcs to attack Lui province. What? Sui Tang was shocked. I didn't expect Chen Yi to shout so. Originally thought that the army of 1,000,000 half-orcs was already his elite, but now it seems that it is not at all. Instead, he wanted to eat his own deciduous province. This deciduous province is extremely important in its own strategic layout and is the key to winning the first place. It must not be lost. Send soldiers, and soon all the soldiers will be sent to Lui province. Didn't Emperor Kangwang and Emperor Chenhui say that they want their soldiers to be promoted? Tell them that as long as we defend the Lui province, we will transfer them 100,000 shield hammer soldiers and 100,000 god hunters. Okay. After receiving Sui Tang's instructions, the deity quickly started the matter. On the other half, Chen Yi looked at the army of orcs marching towards Lui province with a satisfied smile on his face. Now, this is just the first step to unify the plane of stigmata. Orcs marching on the road. At this time, the Black Tower was riding a Kodo beast and Talos, who was riding a war horse, was walking in the forefront. This Kodo beast was also specially sent by Chen Yi from the Plain of Harvest, and there were 2 in total, which were given to Cain and Black Tower. And these 2 are only the descendants of the Kodo Beastmaster, they are extremely powerful. Taros, follow you Uncle Haida, you can rest assured that you will never let you hurt Zero. Hearing Hei Ta said this, there was a trace of doubt on Talos' face. Uncle Haida, when we walked this way, we didn't see an enemy spy. The Black Tower said at this time, Talos, you don't know that, the defense of this fallen leaf province is extremely empty, and most of the troops have been used to deal with our coalition forces that conquered the Blood Elves. Taros nodded, but after thinking about it, I still feel a little worried. Then he yelled, all the gods in the camp, come out. Not long after shouting, a group of orcs and commoners ran to the front of the team. Looking at the half-orcs in the camp, Talos immediately ordered. Everyone in the Shengxing camp, go to the Lui province in advance to inquire about the information, and report immediately if there is any situation. Yes, after speaking, those half-orcs just ran away without a trace. These half-orcs walked extremely fast, and they could go to the Falling Leaf province in advance to find out everything before the army arrived. Black Tower smiled and said, Taros, you are still too careful, who can threaten me? Haha, Uncle Haida is unparalleled, and naturally no one can threaten you. At this moment, the Black Tower looked at the sun. Well, it's getting late now, let's camp. Yes. Then the army of millions of orcs began to camp and rest, and began to light a fire and cook. There are still 300 miles away from Lui province now, and by tomorrow, it will probably be able to reach it. In the middle of the night, Haida and Talos were awakened. Most of the people in the Godwalk camp have been injured, and the ones who were lucky enough to get back are also covered in blood. Seeing this scene, Haida and Talos looked at each other. Then the survivors were called. What's the situation in Lui province now, please tell me carefully. Those who are in the camp 3.6, the eyes are obviously shocked. The army, the countless army, the coalition of humans and orcs have gathered in Lui province. At this time, Chen Yi's oracle also came down immediately. Black Tower, don't worry about these, those are all coalition forces of humans and orcs, just keep moving forward. Remember, save your own life. After Chen Yi finished speaking, he didn't care about the Black Tower's reaction, but sighed a little. These gods really spare no effort to deal with themselves. I don't know how to convince Chenhui that in the emperor of the vast empire, unexpectedly the power of the whole country came to protect Lui province. Add up to 2 million troops. Thinking of this, Chen Yi made a decision. That is, to start a 3-line battle, take this opportunity to send a team of marvelous soldiers to take down the royal city of the Chenhui Empire. And this amazing soldier, let Cain and the Tauren berserkers serve well. These 500 people, even if they face a 100,000 army, there will never be any loss. Afterwards, Chen Yi sent down the oracle to inform Cain of the incident. Cain made preparations overnight, and at the first time, led the Tauren people all the way to the border of the Chenhui Empire. Here, Cain has already brought the Tauren warriors to the outside of the royal city. At this time, the guards of the royal city were not so tight. After all, no one would have thought that Cain would actually adopt such an offensive approach at this time. It was late at night, and the city walls were brightly lit at this time, but the guards were dozing off from time to time. After all, this is the royal city of the Chenhui Empire. The safest place in the entire empire. Whoever wants to come here to do things is basically looking for death. And the city wall is as high as 10 meters, then. Cain looked at the guards who were dozing on the walls, and then gave orders in a low voice. Let's release the arrow. The other Tauren immediately took out the bows and arrows behind them, and the arrows and bowstrings in their hands were already drawn into a full moon. Quack! An arrow directly shot through the human guards. But what followed was an extremely loud horn. Woo! The long and desolate sound of the horn is the special method used by this royal city to send alarms. Cain also didn't expect to enter the royal city quietly. Shooting to death the guard on the wall was nothing more than to reduce some resistance. Then Cain took the Tauren berserker and came directly to the gate of the city. Hundreds of Tauren berserkers joined the battle. Boom! In a blink of an eye, the royal city gate of the Chenhui Empire was blasted open. The guard of the royal city behind the gate was smashed to death. The rest of the guards of the royal city, looking at the fierce Tauren, their entire body was trembling with fright. Where did these demons come from? Cain led the Tauren people into the land of no one in the city. Anyone around who dared to resist was chopped up with an axe. Some mercenaries from the Mercenary Association saw this scene, and wanted to stop Cain and the others, to find the emperor to receive merit. Some of these mercenaries are much more powerful than ordinary humans, and even some martial arts. But with the huge gap in basic attributes, it is not the opponent of the Tauren berserker at all. After all, most of the strength and physical attributes of these mercenaries fluctuate between 20 and 30 points. Where is the opponent of the Tauren? At this moment, a sword shadow appeared in front of Cain's throat. But Cain's agility is already against the sky, where this sword shadow can touch. What? The Jian Ying coughed slightly, and then turned into a blue figure. Seeing that figure, the surrounding mercenary guards shouted in surprise. The national teacher, I didn't expect the national teacher to come here. Now we are saved, we are saved. Master, kill these Tauren quickly. My brother was hacked to death by Tauren just now, help us take revenge. The others also echoed there. Help us get revenge. The cyan figure revealed himself at this time. A pair of cyan clothes with 2 golden long swords in his hands looks extremely luxurious. The eyes were even colder looking at the surroundings, indifferent to the shouts of these people. Cain squeezed the tungsten steel tomahawk in his hand. This is definitely the strongest opponent he has encountered in his life. Even the skeleton king before him is not as threatening as the person in front of him. Here, Chen Yi also noticed the national division of the Chenhui Empire for the first time. Then the attribute panel about the national division was brought up. Landis, race, elf, level, juggernaut, second to demigod. Basic strength, 700. Basic physique, 400. Basic agility, 1600. Basic wisdom, 150. Skills, sword chi yin, sword piercing, magic sword skill, combination of 2 swords. Equipment wind demon sword, ice demon sword. Sword chi yin, use magic to induce airflow, gather enemies in front of you, and cause 15 slashes within 1 second. Sword piercing, in battle, increase your own attack power by 50%, and there is a 30% chance of ignoring the enemy's defense power when attacking, causing additional double damage to enemies with shields. Magic sword skill, incorporate magic into your own sword skills. The Ice Demon Sword will inflict double damage of the ice attribute and physical attack on the enemy, and it has a certain chance to freeze or slow down the enemy. The Wind Demon Sword will repel the enemy in front of you, and cause double damage of the wind attribute and physical attack. At the same time, it will damage the target's life force by 15%. Double Swords Combination. The Wind Demon Sword and the Ice Demon Sword are combined to form the final form, cutting out the sword energy damage formed by the fusion of wind and ice, and forming an ice tornado that lasts 30 seconds and sweeps everything. Inflicting double damage of ice magic and wind magic to the enemy will knock back the enemy and freeze or slow the enemy. Wind Magic Sword. Equal Order Magical Sacred Artifact. Special effect. When using the skill, each hit will cut off 1% of the enemy's current health. Ice Demon Sword. Equal Order Magical Sacred Artifact. Special effects. The freezing time and deceleration time are extended, and an additional 50% damage is caused to enemies in the freezing state. Seeing the attributes of Landis, Chen Yi was a little surprised. Among human beings, this can already be regarded as a top powerhouse. No, this Lantis race is elves, not humans. Among the elves, there is such a strong one. But how can such a strong man become the national teacher of this human empire? Chen Yi didn't know. It's best to get rid of this guy now. Then Chen Yi passed the attribute panel about Landis to Kane's mind. Kane looked at the attributes of Nalandis and was also secretly surprised. I didn't expect this Landis to be so powerful. That agility actually reached 1600 points. At this speed, no wonder it was able to produce afterimages just now. But this speed is not yet Kane's opponent. Kane's agility reached 3250 points. That's more than twice that of Landis. Not to be afraid. The other Tauren berserkers did not have the strength of Kane. Kane knew in his heart that the longer he procrastinated, the more disadvantaged he would be. So this person must be beheaded here. After Kane had this idea, he couldn't help touching the dragon hunting crossbow in his pocket. With his agility and the speed of hunting the dragon crossbow, there is absolutely an opportunity to kill this person. Then Kane plunged the tungsten steel tomahawk into the ground and directly launched a major earthquake strike. He wanted to use the 2 seconds of stun time to kill him. But Nalantis was very alert. At the moment Kane released the massive earthquake strike, Landis jumped into the air directly, avoiding the extremely strong shock wave directly. Sword Chi Yin. Landis directly used the sword air lead, and immediately countless air currents began to converge in front of Landis, and Kane also felt the strong wind. Some Tauren were already untenable, and were directly dragged by the airflow and came in front of Nalantis. Kane saw this scene and immediately erected a 6-meter-high scrap totem between the Tauren and Landis. In the end, the totem golem cut off the connection between the airflows, and Landis's 15 consecutive cuts directly slashed on the totem golem. The existence of the totem golem has doubled the attack power of all Tauren. The Tauren berserkers pulled out their bows and arrows, and the pair of Landis started shooting. The wind blade of the arrow bearer turns into a rain of arrows in the sky. Landis directly used the wind sword in the magic sword technique. An arc was drawn in front of him, and a wall of wind appeared in front of Landis. All the arrows, after hitting the wind wall, suddenly fell from the ground. After Kane saw it, he directly summoned the area of the Blade of Gale and enveloped Nalantis. The blade of the gale was extremely sharp, and Landis suddenly suffered a few more wounds. Landis whirled, and a whirlwind appeared in the middle. The whirlwind began to counteract the attacks of the surrounding gale blades. Kane yelled at this moment, "The tribesmen, just now, kill him." All the Tauren berserkers suddenly raised their battle axes and rushed towards Landis. After Landis saw it, he directly combined the 2 long swords in his hand into one, forming a half-blue and half-blue giant sword. The 2 swords go together. Suddenly, a huge frost tornado appeared in the royal city. The tornado was huge, 30 meters high. With extremely low temperature, everything around it is frozen. There was a thick layer of refrigerators wherever they went. After the tornado was sent out, Narendis temporarily exhausted his physical and magical powers. Looking at the frost tornado raging across 483 city, Landis smiled with satisfaction. Now, all these intruders can finally be killed. For the combination of these 2 swords, Landis is very confident. Miles. There was a faint arrow sound, and Landiston felt a sharp pain in his heart. It seemed so ironic to see the arrows emerging from his chest, shining with the wind rune. The things that have been experienced before are like the clouds of the past, constantly flashing in Lantis's mind. Then Lantis fell from the totem golem. With the sound of the wind, his body was directly held to bloody blood. Cain appeared in front of Narantis's corpse at this time. If it weren't for this, Lantis exhausted his physical and magical powers, his own dragon hunting bolt might not be able to kill him. Looking at the ice giant's sword wind in that Lantis's hand, Cain directly picked it up. This is a good thing. Then he briefly searched Lantis's body, and a note appeared in Cain's hands at this time. This diary contains not only some of the daily life of this Lantis, but also the cultivation method of the magic sword technique. Good stuff. Then Cain put it in his pocket. As for the ice wind greatsword, Cain fought for a long time before finally seeing a button on the hilt. Then I pressed it once, and the ice giant's sword had a flash of wind, and immediately separated again, becoming the wind demon's sword and the ice demon's sword. And those Tauren, now shivering and coming to Cain's front. Chief, this tornado was so strong, we almost never came back. Cain counted the number of people and found that there were no few people, and then said, "Next, it's time to go to the palace to do some exercises." Yes. Then the 500 Tauren began to sprint towards the palace. At this moment, a group of magicians in black robes appeared on each roof. Some hold a staff, some hold a crystal ball, and some hold a magic book scroll. These are members of the Chenhui Empire Magic Association. It is also the noblemen of the Chenhui Empire. Now, it is time for them to make sacrifices for their country. Suddenly, magic hits Cain and the others. Fireball, pyroblast, light spear, flame blast, extreme ice feast, sky thunder, etc. These various schools of magic exploded among Cain and them one after another. But because of the 51% magic resistance, it didn't cause much harm to these Tauren people. Such a scene makes all magicians feel terrified. Then the Tauren climbed to the roof, and the battle axe in their hands slashed directly at the magicians. Those magicians also showed their magical powers. She puts layers of elemental shields on her body. For example, the extremely hard ice shield, the flame shield that burns the enemy to protect themselves, the lightning shield, the wind shield, and so on. In the dark, these shields are like dazzling fireflies, and they have nowhere to hide. The Tauren berserkers easily split the shields of these magicians and cut off their great heads. Without the obstacles of these magicians, Cain continued to lead the Tauren to the palace. At this time, the entire palace was brightly lit with torches. The palace guards had already seen the menacing Cain and them. The incident of Cain's killing of the national teacher had long been heard by the guards of the palace. It is false to say no to fear. But no matter what, they can't let these Tauren cause any harm to the emperor. Kill. Protect your majesty. The commander of the palace guards immediately rushed to Cain and the others with a golden knife, and the rest of the palace guards were also infected by the courage of the guards commander. They took a knife and killed Cain and the others. But these palace guards whose basic strength is less than 10 or 20 points, how can they be Cain's opponent? Cain and the others directly slashed all the way and entered the palace. The emperor of the Chenhui Empire, Andre X, was sitting on the throne of the central palace of the palace at this time. Looking at Cain and the others, King Andre IX did not choose to escape. "You finally came, let's talk, what's the purpose?" Cain looked at the Emperor Chenhui, and felt that he was indeed very heroic, but it was a pity that he encountered such a world. "I think you should know that what I want to say here is to withdraw your human army from Fallen Leaves." Hearing Cain said this, Andre nodded. "Any other requirements?" "After all, now I am a fish." Andre has no room for bargaining. "Yes, naturally there is." Cain had already walked to the throne where Andre was sitting. "Go down." After speaking, Cain searched Andre from the throne. Then Cain sat himself on the throne. Seeing Cain like this, Andre was a little angry, but he still didn't show it. After all, his life is still in Cain's hands. Cain looked at Emperor Andre, who was holding back his anger, and then smiled. "If you have any comments, you don't have to bear it, just say it." No. Andre suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. "Nothing is fine." After Cain finished speaking, he said his next purpose. "I want your Chenhui Empire to be close to the 2 provinces of the orcs. From now on, let your people withdraw from those 2 provinces." Hearing this, Andre couldn't help but said, "There are too many things involved in it, it is impossible to withdraw it. If my emperor wants them to forcibly evacuate, I'm afraid they will just stand on their own." Cain nodded. "Yes, I just want them to stand on their own feet. If we go to beat them in the future, you don't have to worry about it." When Cain said this, Andre sighed helplessly. "This is the only way it is now." "Okay, I promise you." After speaking, a minister was brought in and signed the evacuation order. Cain smiled with satisfaction after seeing the order given down. "Yes, not bad." Then Cain looked at the Tauren berserkers. "You go find a place on your own. Next, we will stay here for a month." "Yes." Falling leaves outside the province. Haida and Talos, who were attacking Louis province, received a secret report from the spies. It was said that it was the human army. At this time, it had begun to withdraw, and now only the Orc coalition army was left. Good. Haida was extremely happy. The foster father said in his heart that the human army will retreat soon, but now it seems to be true. Talos was suspicious, and then said to the spy, "Send someone to investigate and make sure about this." Yes. The spies left here after finishing talking. Black Tower looked at Taros. "You are too cautious." Talos said with some embarrassment, "Uncle Haida, I'm also just in case. If this matter is certain, then we will launch a general attack on the Fallen Leaf province tomorrow. It should have been like this long ago. The Black Tower is gearing up. This Fallen Leaf province is like a thorn in the throat to the Empire. Until now, you can finally pull out this thorn." Yes. Deciduous province. The Tiger General of the vast empire was furious at this time. "Those humans are gone at this critical juncture, what should we do?" The dwarf chief comforted the Tiger General. "It's okay, those half-orcs are only 1 million, don't we still have 1.5 million troops now?" Hearing the words of the dwarf chief, the Tiger General was still angry. "After this battle is fought, the Laudi of our empire will all be lost. Number way, I want to report the situation here to our emperor." After speaking, only the chiefs of the god race were left looking at each other. If the orc left again, it would really not have any strength to resist the army of half-orcs. What awaits them is the destruction of the city. Thinking of this, the Blood Elf chief looked at the Fox chief. "Now I can only use your spiritual magic, and I hope to succeed." Hearing the words of the Blood Elf chief, the Fox chief nodded with a heavy face. "The task will be completed." After speaking, the patriarch of the Fox directly transformed a face that charmed all living beings. The temperament of the whole body has also changed. Over the Blood Elf Shug's mountain range, at this time the gods all learned about the withdrawal of the human empire. Sui Tang was full of resentment. "Really, I didn't expect Chen Yi's Tauren to be so strong, we have always underestimated him before." Hearing Sui Tang's words, Su Siming then said, "In this case, I can only abandon the Lui province and reorganize the strategy." Sui Tang and Fang Nan's strength had long been lost during the big melee, but now it's far away, the money is good as far less than Su Siming's side. The right to speak naturally falls on Su Siming. Thinking of this, Sui Tang nodded helplessly. Then he looked at the gods of his camp. "We will surrender the oracles to our respective races, abandon the province of Falling Leaves, and do our best to maintain the cities in the Chenhui Empire and the vast empire." Okay, the other gods can't wait to surrender the oracles to their own race. Time passed. On the Black Tower side, the general offensive has also been launched. But what is amazing is that all those who fought against them were the orcs, and none of the other god races were seen. And these orcs have no desire to resist at all, fighting all the way back. His face was full of reluctance. The Black Tower is like a matchless in this army of orcs. No matter what kind of orc it is not his enemy of one. After breaking through the city gate and arriving at the City Lord Mansion, there was only a Tiger General left in the huge City Lord Mansion. The rest of the races have already been empty. The Tiger General's eyes were dull, and his mind was obviously controlled. When the Black Tower walked in, he was also indifferent. Haida immediately raised the tungsten steel battle axe, trying to chop off the head of the Tiger General. A voice came. "Uncle Haida, stay under the axe." Talos ran in. The Black Tower's battle axe also stopped immediately. "What's the matter? Let me chop off this guy." Talos shook his head. Then the remaining half-orcs were ordered to imprison the tiger general and must not be tortured. Uncle Haida, this General Tiger man is an excellent bargaining chip. Our half-orc empire must unify the entire plane in the future. When facing the Orc Empire in the future, this will definitely save us the loss of countless soldiers. Hearing Talos said so, Dark Tower nodded. Well, I understand. But those Orc captives, let's kill them. When Talos heard Haida say this, his heart was obviously in favor of this matter. But that trace of hidden heart touched him from time to time. Just now I roughly estimated that, excluding those killed, there are almost 600,000 prisoners. The food consumed by these prisoners every day is an astronomical figure. It is absolutely impossible to raise these captives for nothing. But if these Orc captives 483 are put back, the future will definitely become a resistance to their unification. The only way now is to kill. Here, Cain left the Chinhui Empire after receiving the news of the destruction of the fallen provincial city. There are still many things to do now. The first step is to conquer the 2 provinces of the Chinhui Empire. The 2 provinces of the Chinhui Empire, Bolivark and Ogo, have now declared their independence. Nobles are hereditary. These 2 provinces are controlled by the ducal families. It is absolutely impossible to give up the place where you have lived for generations. Once you give up, I am afraid that my family will never fall, and there will no longer be any chance of turning over. Therefore, even in the face of the threat of the half-orc empire, he would never give up. The territory of the Blood Elves in the Shugs Mountains. At this time this place has become a purgatory on Earth. The corpses of countless orcs are scattered randomly here. Among them are some Blood Elves and the corpses of those gods. These deity races include humans, dwarves, werewolves, snakemen, lizardmen, harpy, mammoths, lower demons, and so on. At this time, they were all dead like monsters, and they were terribly miserable. Su Siming and Sui Tang Fang Nan looked at the battlefield silently. I really didn't expect that the strength of these half-orcs was so powerful. Put one's own life completely out of the way. One by one, just like a mad dog, they will never die to them. Until the fight to the last person. I want to quit. At this moment, a deity in Sui Tang's camp raised his hand. His priesthood is the god of sickness, and now his race has been killed to less than 1/10. Sui Tang's face was a little ugly. After all, they are all classmates, so she can't say anything. Well, yes, quit. After the sick god finished speaking, some other gods successively raised their hands. I also quit. I also quit. In a blink of an eye, most of Sui Tang's gods here chose to quit. There is no point in continuing to fight. Afterwards, the teleporter flashed, and the races of those gods were teleported back to their respective planes. After all this was done, the deities who withdrew had already come beyond the crystal wall of the plane. After the teachers saw the large group of students, their eyes were a little weird. After all, there are some outstanding students among them. But now he has already quit. Some head teachers gathered in front of Johaji at this time. Old, your student is not simple. One person has eliminated hundreds of students. There is even the principal's son among them. Johaji was also smiling. After all, Chen Yi will be rewarded if he wins the first place. It's all luck. This student is an orphan. Maybe he got the resources left by his parents. When the other teachers heard that Chen Yi was an orphan, their eyes showed sympathy. After all, in the main plane, it is very difficult for a deity to die. Only when helping the Empire to fight a plane war, is it possible to die on the way to the plane of the God of War. It can be said that Chen Yi is the offspring of the martyr, the scholar, and the scholar. Therefore, the school waived all tuition and accommodation fees for Chen Yi. Well, that's really a shame. However, seeing Chen Yi as an orphan overwhelming the students who are close to the family behind them, these teachers couldn't express their appreciation. The plane of stigmata. 5 months have passed now. During this period of time, Cain had already brought an army of half-orcs to level the 2 provinces of the Chinhui Empire. Now 50% of the territory of the Chinhui Empire is under Chen Yi's control. 30% is in the hands of Sui Tang. The current Chinhui Empire has completely become a country that exists in name only. The last piece of territory of the Chinhui Empire was not annexed because the king city of Chinhui was immediately after the Starfall Empire of the Dwarves and Elves. If it is annexed, it will inevitably cause the dwarves and elves to counterattack. In terms of combat effectiveness, the combination of dwarf technology and elf magic is definitely more difficult than humans and orcs. Therefore, this last piece of the Chenhui Empire's territory served as a buffer with the Falling Star Empire. On Chen Yi's side, he issued an oracle. Use all your energy to deal with the vast empire. After all, this vast empire occupies the fertile southern land. As long as half-orcs have enough food, they can continuously produce newborns. It can be said that every year there will be a baby boom. And Sui Tang and the others have already used the vast empire as their base camp to operate. Coupled with the destruction of most of the elite, it was no longer possible to stop Sui Tang and the others from infiltrating the race of gods. Before the border cordon, the army of orcs had gathered here at this time. Black Tower and Talos stood at the forefront of the border at this time. Today is their day to attack the vast empire. Looking at the fertile southern land, Haida spit. The land occupied by these orcs is so good, the Father God should have sent an oracle to let us destroy these orcs. When Talos heard Haida say this, he said quickly, "Uncle Haida, speak carefully." Haida hurriedly covered his mouth when he heard it. Then fell to his knees. "Great God of harvest, I hope you don't blame your people." Talos helped the Black Tower up. "Uncle Haida, the great harvest god doesn't care about this little thing. However, you have to fight the enemy bravely next." Haida immediately patted his chest. "That's natural. I will kill 10,000 orcs to show the Father God." Talos nodded afterwards. "The great harvest god will know." Then he looked at the army of orcs behind him. The whole army listened to my orders and set off. The army was mighty and began to march towards the vast empire. On the other side, Cain also took the army from Bolivark to the Blood Elf territory. This place is extremely close to the Blood Elf territory, and it only takes about 3 days to talk. The benefits of getting the 2 provinces of the Chenhui Empire are here. Before starting from the Orc Empire, 1,000,000 troops walked for more than a month. After getting there, people were tired. And now, after 3 days of walking, he can reach the periphery of the Blood Elf territory. The combat effectiveness is not the same grade. In the previous battle, the races of those gods have already left, and now in this Blood Elven territory, there are only the races under the gods that support the Blood Elves. Now that the Orc Empire is so strong, Chen Yi has enough strength to conduct multi-line combat. Su Siming's side received Sui Tang's request for help from the gods of the Blood Elven territory, but did not make any move. Rather, it was shrouded in the Falling Star Empire. Now Su Siming's side seems to have given up the idea of competing for the first place. Except for the daily training of soldiers in the race of Falling Star Empire, there is no other action. And the goblin had already begun to march towards the ground at this time. He began to build his own base camp in the endless jungle. The goblin who has mastered a lot of technology can be said to be Su Siming's trump card. However, since the goblins and the elves are feuds, the 2 families cannot urinate in a pot, so there is a hidden danger. But all this is under control. At this time, the deity of the Blood Elven territory, looking at the army of half-orcs, was an estrus in his mind. Seeking Sui Tang's male side for help, but they are now too busy to take care of themselves. But when I looked for Su Siming, there was no answer at all. It was obvious that he had given up on them. The last war had already lost most of their military strength, and now they can't stand the toss again if they do it again. "Do you want to quit?" As soon as this thought came out, the gods couldn't stop thinking about it. "As long as you withdraw, you can reduce many casualties of your own race. After all, the beliefs, resources and time spent in cultivating a unit are extremely precious." Quit. A deity whose priesthood is the god of blood could not help but speak out at this time. When the first one is spoken, the second and the third follow immediately. On the Blood Elves, the 13 gods had already decided to withdraw at this time. Thinking of this, the teleporter in his hand flashed, and he directly teleported his race back to his plane. And they also began to fly towards the plane crystal wall. The Blood Elf King, seeing the disappearance of the deities' races at this time, suddenly understood that those deities had abandoned them. Sitting on the throne, the Blood Elf King frowned. Does the next resistance still make sense? This is not there at all. Looking at the council elders on both sides, the Blood Elf King made a decision. Kaesong, Surrender. After hearing the decision of the Blood Elf King, the council elders were obviously relieved. The disappearance of the deity races just now made these council elders have no intention of resistance. Some people are even thinking about how to get the Blood Elf King to agree to surrender. Now that the Blood Elf King had already spoken it out, the sinner didn't need them to bear it. The Blood Elves adopt an elder council system. If there is a decision that more than half of the elders agree with, then the decision can be passed. Even the Blood Elf King couldn't intervene. At this time, Cain, who was already under the city, saw that the city gate had been opened wide. Surrounded by the elders, the Blood Elf King walked out of the city gate. Cain suddenly understood that it was these Blood Elves who had surrendered. To some extent, it can also be said that he was frightened and surrendered. Into the city, Cain then waved a big hand and gave orders to the orcs behind. Afterwards, the army of half-orcs marched into the city with great strength. And Cain never looked at the Blood Elf King from beginning to end. In the palace, Cain sat high on the throne, looking at the Blood Elf King and council elders who were kneeling on the ground. "We come here with only one purpose, which is your son Spar." After the Blood Elves heard it, they looked at each other immediately. At this time, the Blood Elf King said quickly, "My lord, this sun Spar is the foundation for our Blood Elves to replenish energy. If it is handed over, there will be no way to maintain our energy." Cain puckered his ears. "Don't worry, I only want the purest ones, and the rest are impurity. I will never want them." Afterwards, Cain walked down from the throne. "Where is the sun Spar mine? Take me there." The Blood Elf King had no choice, so he nodded and agreed. Yes. Then the Blood Elf King took Cain to the sun mine. The sun mine is huge, with a radius of hundreds of kilometers. It looked like a huge red eye on the whole map. This sun mine exudes an extremely hot power, and a group of Blood Elf miners open elemental shields to enter and exit there. When he came out, there was an extra gold red ore in his hand. But these Blood Elf miners obviously had to replenish their magic power before they could get in. Some people's elemental shields began to falter. Cain was also a little surprised watching this scene. "I didn't expect this sun Spar to be so difficult to mine. I thought it was just a simple digging of ore, but now it looks like this." It seemed that the plan for the orcs' army to dig with all its strength could only be temporarily shelved. Then Cain looked at the Blood Elf King. "How much can your solar spar produce every day?" The Blood Elf King roughly estimated at this time. "My lord, the daily output of this sun spar is about 1,700 kilograms." Hearing this, Cain was a little dissatisfied. This 1,700 caddies, picked out the highest purity, maybe dozens of caddies. The energy consumed by that world-destroying armor once activated may be thousands of caddies of solar spar. For him, this is nothing but a drop in the bucket. Then if your whole clan mines, how much can the daily output be reached? The Blood Elf King immediately replied, "It's probably about 13,000 caddies." "Well, yes, from now on, your whole family will start mining, and the daily purity of the sun spar must not be less than 500 caddies." Yes, the Blood Elf King has now decided to submit the whole clan to the Orc Empire. This sun spar is a nomination. As long as this matter is handled properly, there will definitely be many benefits. After all, he had also heard that the humans who surrendered the Chinhui Empire and the Tianyi Empire survived well in the Orc Empire. Becoming a vassal is a good thing. 10,000. In the following days, the Blood Elves began to excavate the sun spar. Cain is here to supervise these Blood Elves. At the same time, the record of Dark Tower and Talos in the vast empire is also a winning streak. Most of Sui Tang's deities have already withdrawn. Even Fang Nan has already quit. Only Sui Tang was left alone to resist. The reason why she is like this is entirely because the reward for the first place invasion of the plane this time is extremely rich. That is an artifact, a scepter with infinite energy. And the owner of this scepter is the original fire god on this stigmata plane. But Sui Tang is over. In the end, after the last heavy hammer dwarf was killed in the battle of the vast empire, he was completely disqualified. Sui Tang came to Chen Yi for the first time. Both eyes were wide open, and his mouth was 4877. "Chen Yi, count you cruel." Looking at Sui Tang who was so angry, Chen Yi didn't care. "Why, if I don't attack you, will you not attack me?" "Woman, don't be too double-labeled. Sui Tang knew that he was wrong, but he still didn't forgive others. I hope I don't see you in other planes in the future, otherwise you will look good. After speaking, Sui Tang left here. Looking at Sui Tang who was leaving, Chen Yi felt that this was definitely a woman spoiled by the family. Although it seems quite scheming and mature, but when it comes to critical times, she becomes a shrew. In the chaos, the planes are endless, and the chance of seeing them again after graduation is extremely small. Chen Yi didn't care about Sui Tang's threat either. Besides, the main plane prohibits private fights between gods. Only wars between races are allowed. Chen Yi's Tauren, he thinks he doesn't fear anyone. Now he has occupied the 3 empires of the 5 empires on this stigmata plane. The rest is the Falling Star Empire and the Burial Sun Empire. The Burial Day Empire is not a concern. But the strength of the Falling Star Empire is strong, and there are many magic technologies. The magic crystal cannon was smuggled from the Star-Falling Empire before. Other weapons that are more powerful than the magic crystal cannon abound. It's really not easy. Chen Yi changed his mind at this time. If you want to be the number 1 perfectly, then you can directly activate the World Destruction Armor. The attack of World Destroying Armor can definitely easily conquer this Falling Star Empire. Thinking of this, Chen Yi sent an oracle to Cain. Cain, the World Destroying Armor may be used in the future, so I will excavate the Sunspar with all my strength, and by the way supervise the production speed of those dwarves. After hearing the oracle of God the Father, Cain quickly responded. Yes, the great God of harvest. Cain then strictly followed Chen Yi's oracle to execute the world-destroying armor. The progress has reached 95% by this time, and it will be almost 2 months before it is fully put into use. Sunspar, at this time, was also continuously transported from the Sun Mine to the underground dwarf city of the Orc Empire. With extremely high purity Sunspar, that world-killing armor can also be manufactured to some extent. The speed of completion is gradually accelerating. Goblin, underground world. This is the world of goblins. The goblins who had come here to settle down 10,000 years ago were looking at the abyss they had dug out. A muffled roar continued from under the abyss. The voice was ancient and vague, full of majesty and desolation. Su Siming was standing beside the Goblin Patriarch at this time. This flame dragon, are you sure you can control it? The Goblin Patriarch looked at Su Siming respectfully. My God, this dragon has been imprisoned by our goblins for tens of thousands of years. It runs a mental control device all day long, and its will is absolutely completely controlled by us. Originally, this dragon was specially trained by our goblin clan to counterattack the ground in the future. Please rest assured about this. Hearing what the Goblin Patriarch said, Su Siming nodded. I can't stay here for too long. Ji Yushi will contact you for the next thing. Yes, my God. As soon as the Goblin Patriarch finished his salute, Su Siming left here. After a while, a mammoth walked over. He is Su Siming's mammoth chief, which is the ancient stone Su Siming just mentioned. The Goblin chief looked at the mammoth chief, and then said, Does the god have any instructions next? The mammoth chief nodded. The big decisive battle is coming, now we must let this dragon reach its peak state. Yes, of course. After the Goblin Patriarch finished speaking, he beckoned. Then a goblin driving a huge flying machine came here. Chief Gushi, let me go down and take a look now, this dragon is absolutely fierce. After speaking, the Goblin Patriarch took the seat of the co-pilot. And Ji Yushi's huge mammoth body directly occupied all the seats behind. As the aircraft sank, Ji Yushi felt an illusion of weightlessness. Gradually, the surrounding fiery red flames became thicker and the temperature became higher and higher. But the aircraft immediately opened an energy shield to maintain the aircraft's temperature at a suitable temperature. Looking down, a magma lake appeared in front of Ji Yushi at this time. The magma lake is huge, with a radius of tens of thousands of meters. In the middle of the magma lake, a fiery red dragon was howling in it at this time. The flame dragon was over 100 meters tall, and its scales were shining, making it seem extremely defensive. At the same time, the nose constantly sprays green and red flames, which looks extremely hot. However, his body was covered with chains, and a huge helmet was worn on his head. The helmet radiated electric currents from time to time, and gave electric shocks to the dragon. Every electric shock caused the dragon to let out a howl. Obviously this electric shock is definitely not as easy as this. This should be the mind control device that the Goblin Patriarch said. After tens of thousands of years of control, the flame dragon's eyes were dull at this time, and there was no spirituality. It looks like a puppet. Chief Gushi, this dragon is not bad. Shi nodded. This dragon is definitely a war machine, the kind that is invincible on the battlefield. No matter how powerful those Tauren 3.6 and orcs are, there is no way to survive the attack of this giant dragon. At this time, huge beasts fell from the sky. The flame dragon opened its huge mouth and swallowed the beasts directly into its stomach. The daily fire dragon food is extremely large, and it is astounding to see this food as an ancient stone. Hey, this is too edible. The Goblin Patriarch laughed and said, this dragon is already a young man. According to our documents, this dragon's appetite when he was young was called that one. A day's food intake is more than 10 times the current amount. At the beginning, our ancestors dug here and found a dragon egg in this magma lake. This dragon clan once ruled the entire world and is extremely powerful, so we gave birth to the idea of raising this dragon. It seems that this decision is indeed correct. Dwarf Underground City. That world-destroying armor was almost complete at this time. The rest of the weapons were loaded very easily, and now the most important thing is to load the world destruction bomb. There are only 3 world-killing bombs. They were loaded on the chest, right arm and left arm of the destroyer armor. Among the other weapons, the magnetic bomb was loaded with hundreds of them. After all, this magnetic bomb can be made by the dwarves now, but the materials needed for the extermination bomb have long since disappeared. Cain was standing in the head of the world-destroying armor at this time. Through spiritual connection, you can control this world-destroying armor, which can be invincible on the battlefield. There is no race at all that can block the edge of this world-exterminating armor, and it will surely be destroyed under the world-exterminating armor. In the following days, Cain ate and drank and Lazarus was in the head of the extinct armor. It is to be able to better control the destroyed armor. Moreover, in order to make the armor of Destroyer fit better with Cain, the dwarf installed 2 horns on the head. This world-extinguishing armor looked like a world-extinguishing bull demon, and also like a mechanical Tauren. The sun spar is burning, constantly providing energy for the O3 armor. The sun spar consumed every day is an astronomical number. But it's all worth it. Now Cain controls this world-destroying armor like an arm. Coupled with the 1000 times agility bonus, Cain can go to any place on the plane of stigmata in an instant. Of course, the energy consumed in this is also extremely amazing. Cain has not yet reached this state of profligacy. The Black Tower and Talos are also constantly gathering troops on the border. The army of half-orcs now has 10 million soldiers capable of fighting. This 10 million is supported by the entire half-orc empire and is constantly being honed all day long. Just for this unified plane of war. And the dwarves, elves, and goblins also took out all their war weapons. Similar to battle armor, goblin bombs, aerial gunboats, steel giant crossbows, siege vehicles, etc. The sky is full of technological weapons piled up on the border. Every weapon can produce extremely terrifying destructive power. The wizards, archers, etc. of the elven clan are also extremely threatening existences on the battlefield. In this war, it can be said that both sides have brought out their old friends. However, the world-destroying armor equipped by Cain was not used in the first time. If you can unify the plane with these 10 million orc soldiers, there is no need to use this trump card. Vibe Grassland, the place of decisive battle. The entire area covers 1,000 square kilometers. Countless races are gathered here. Sue Simmings' party also came into the air early. Now there are 39 students left in their group. The races add up to more than 500,000. Adding dwarves, elves, and goblins, there are 3 million soldiers. Although not comparable to the 10 million army of half-orcs, they have technological weapons and ace dragons. If you really want to fight, you won't suffer much. And the existence of this giant dragon is enough to make up for this huge gap in military strength. With an order, the shouts shook the sky. The Black Tower charged with the sword of the beheader. The first thing I encountered was the goblin army. The army of goblins kept throwing bombs at the army of orcs. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions exploded countless broken limbs in the air. Because they hadn't charged into the goblin army, the extra 5 seconds of immunity to death only caused these half-orc soldiers to suffer 5 seconds. Suddenly there was a buzzing and roaring sound in the sky. The Black Tower looked up, and it turned out that the dwarf's aerial gunboat flew here. The muzzle of the aerial gunboat kept firing bombs at the army of orcs. Boom, boom. For a time, countless half-orcs lost their lives. Seeing this scene, Haida yelled, "Where is the archer? Where did the archer die?" Immediately afterwards, the archers among the orcs shot at the aerial gunboats. But those arrows shot on those aerial gunboats, only piercing half an inch thick. There is no way to hurt the dwarves inside. The dwarf in the gunboat yelled excitedly, pressing the button of the cannonball in his hand extremely quickly. Countless shells bombarded the orcs' army. Haida looked at the arrogant face of the dwarf in the gunboat, and suddenly couldn't tell the atmosphere. Afterwards, kick and jump. Under the strong strength and agility, he jumped directly onto one of the gunboats. Picking up the Slayer's sword in his hand, he slashed straight down. Boom! The entire gunboat was chopped into scrap metal directly by the killers in the hands of the Black Tower, and began to fall to the ground with black smoke. At the moment the gunboat fell, the Black Tower kicked its legs directly and jumped towards the other gunboat. Gradually, hundreds of gunboats were shot down in the sky, and the remaining gunboats were also frightened and floated high. The high-altitude air is thin and it is extremely difficult to breathe. But in this way, there is no way to fire shells at all. Because the air here is so thin that even the fuse cannot be ignited. Quack, quack. One after another huge arrows began to attack the army of half-orcs. This is a giant steel crossbow of the dwarf clan, powerful. Like a bunch of candied haws, a series of orcs were strung together. However, these steel giant crossbows were extremely slow to load, and they only killed more than 10,000 half-orcs, which was already powerless. In a blink of an eye, the army of half-orcs rushed to the 487 of the army of goblins. That is a collision between steel. The steel armor on the goblin's body was chopped off by the half-orc, and huge cracks appeared. In addition, the natural strength of the goblin is not as good as that of the half-orcs, and the slaying of them for a time retreats. At this time, the Black Tower is even more like no one. The swordsman of the Slayer's sword will be a large piece of goblin death. After killing all the vanguards of the goblins in the back row have already loaded the muskets in their hands. Boom! Steel pellets attack the army of half-orcs. Every bullet has a mighty power, and the armor on the half-orc barely can defend a part of it. But the impact is still somewhat unstoppable. Another large swath of orcs fell, but this was also a precious opportunity for the orcs behind. In a blink of an eye, the army of half-orcs swept the entire army of goblins like a torrent of steel. Both parties counted their losses. The actuarial is 1-for-1. In the sky, it has gradually started to rain. Dark clouds are constantly gathering in the sky, and the power of lightning condenses in it. The palace magician of the elves made a move at this time. The rain technique is perfectly combined with the thunder and lightning technique. Crack! The thunder and lightning fell. All lives, under this powerful thunder and lightning, were reduced to ashes in an instant. Because of the heavy rain, a single lightning bolt can affect thousands of orcs. The half-orcs who were affected suddenly felt numb all over, and half of their body was unconscious. But even so, there is no way to stop the orcs from advancing. Stepping on the corpses of the same kind, began to move forward continuously. The elf elder held a magic wand and muttered a word, and the magic in his body gushed out. Boom rumble. There were countless thunder and lightning in the sky, and the squally wind blew up, and a huge tornado began to wreak havoc on the sky and the earth. Those elven magicians around also began to portray the magic circle. Stone walls rose from the ground one after another, trying to block the army of half-orcs from the stone wall. But all this is in vain. It can only stop tens of thousands of people, and tens of millions of orc soldiers can't stop it at all. The air is now filled with the smell of blood, burnt, rust and so on. Everywhere shouted to kill the sky. The tornado only lasted for a minute, and it was filled with the corpses of the orcs. The elder couldn't sustain such a majestic consumption of magic power, and was directly consumed by magic. After a mouthful of blood was spit out, the whole body turned into smoke and was blown away by the wind. Great Elder! The rest of the elven magicians saw this scene, and they were very sad. At this moment, the elf queen saw this scene and looked at the god chiefs headed by Gu Shi. How many soldiers do we have to die before you are willing to take action? Gu Shi nodded when seeing the elf queen frantic. Then the huge mammoth and the rest of the treants, snowmen, banshees, pandamen, vampires, etc., all began to dispatch. These races of gods are far more powerful than the orcs. After joining the battlefield, the army of half-orcs was defeated steadily. But the number is far too small compared to the army of tens of millions of half-orcs. Ants often kill elephants, not to mention this fierce half-orc. 3 half-orcs can change to an elite race, and as time goes by, those god races have suffered heavy losses. Roar! A huge dragon chant came from the ground, and a dragon that covered the sky and sun appeared at the back of the battlefield. It was the flame dragon that was 100 meters long, and its entire body was like an ancient beast, and the head of this dragon was the Goblin Patriarch. He is manipulating the dragon through mental stimulation. Seeing the dragon, the Elf Queen and the Dwarf King were extremely excited. Is this the dragon that the goblin has nurtured for thousands of years? It looks really strong. And Chen Yi sitting high above the clouds, after seeing this scene, a look of shock appeared in his eyes. How could a dragon appear? And it can be manipulated. Then Chen Yi called out the attributes of the dragon. Fire Dragon Poros. Race Fire Dragon. Level Demigod. Basic Strength 9000. Basic Physique 8000. Basic Agility 7500. Basic Wisdom 10,000. Talents Magic Immunity, Dragon's Breath, Dragon's Coercion, Dragon's Claws. Magic Immunity, born with 100% magic resistance, it is immune to all magic under the Forbidden Curse. Dragon Breath, Breath of Flame Dragon, causing endless fire damage. Dragon's Mighty. Naturally, it has pressure on other races. When facing the dragon, the damage to the other races is increased by 50%, and there is a certain chance to make them surrender. Dragon's Claws, it can tear all attacks and use huge and sharp claws to cause damage to the enemy in front of them. Skills Fear Dragon Roar, Dragon Language Prophecy, Dragon Language Exile, Dragon Language Barrier, Dragon Language Storm. Fear Dragon Roar, sends out a dragon roar that frightens all things, causing sonic waves and mental attacks on all enemies. Dragon Language Prophecy, randomly release a magic that has never appeared in history, and its power will be maximized. Dragon Language Banishment, banish an enemy into the chaos and imprison its action for 1 hour. Dragon Language Barrier, create an extremely powerful magic barrier that can block demigods and all attacks under demigods. Dragon Word Storm, permanently change the current regional weather and summon a flame storm that destroys the world. At this time, the dragon was soaring in the sky, chanting endless dragon words in his mouth, and the weather in the sky had begun to change at this time. In the sky, a wave of magic that was stronger than the previous elven tribe elder appeared. Dragon Language Magic, Storm. This is the magic that can permanently change the current regional weather and make it a purgatory on Earth. Using such a powerful dragon language magic when he came up, this Goblin Patriarch was also able to fight it. After all, this is the first time the Flame Dragon has taken action. This battle must be recorded in the annals of history, so that future generations will always remember their heroic posture. The sky was dimly changing at this time, and meteors and fire rain continued to fall from the sky. The thick smoke completely covered the sun. Those flames fell on the army of half-orcs, and each one would take away the lives of dozens of half-orcs soldiers. Su Siming couldn't help flashing lightness when he saw this scene. It's finally back to a city. With this dragon, the first place is his own. Chen Yi has developed too quickly in the stigmata plane over the years, and these races alone have no way to defeat him. The other gods are also happy. I finally got the right person. As long as Su Siming reaches the first place, according to the rules, the party that belongs to Su Siming can also get a lot of resources. But in the next scene, Su Siming's deity's heart sank to the bottom. A loud noise came from the horizon. Cain arrived here at this time in the destroyer armor. The huge figure of world-destroying armor stunned everyone. The huge metal armor was covered with weapons, and each of those weapons looked extremely fierce. After seeing some dwarves, they couldn't help but think of the legend in the clan. That is a weapon that can destroy the world. What the hell is that? The gods looked at the over 30-meter high armored armor, and their hearts were full of doubts. Then I clicked it on, and checked the attributes of the armor. When seeing that level divine tool, everyone was not calm. Chen Yi got the world-killing weapon developed by that dwarf. The school also sent them this information about the stigmata plane before, including the ultimate weapon of the dwarf clan. According to legend, a weapon capable of destroying the entire stigmata plane. But I didn't expect it to fall into the hands of this Chen Yi. The gods scolded angrily. Why these good things belong to him? There is nothing on my own side. At this moment, the Goblin Patriarch also saw the world-destroying armor. At the beginning, the development of this world-destroying armor had the participation of goblin ancestors, and he recognized it at a glance. But the Goblin Patriarch had no fear at all. Instead, his fighting spirit rose. It depends on whether your world-destroying armor is stronger, or my flame dragon is better. Poros, Dragon Whisper Magic, the prophecy is activated. Dragon language magic prophecy is a very strange magic. It allows the dragon to use magic that has never appeared in the history of the stigmata plane. No one knows what this magic is. At this time, a thick dark fog appeared. The flame dragon roared in the sky, and its huge body stretched across the sky. Under the roar of the dragon, lightning in the thundercloud lightened the dark sky from time to time. The meteor fire rain has stopped attacking. The dark black fog had already begun to slowly cover the battlefield at this time. The corpses on the battlefield had all been corrupted by the dark thick fog into black fluid at this time. Strangeness breeds and takes root on the earth, and countless black figures are born from the battlefield at this time. These black figures have no facial features but limbs. Two eyes glowing with gray light looked at the world around him. Looking at these weird black figures, all races felt a kind of nausea and fear in their hearts. Just like ordinary humans see a poisonous snake, the scalp is numb. As if it were their natural enemies since ancient times. At this time, the Goblin Patriarch looked crazy at this magic that had never appeared on the plane of stigmata. Poros, order the figures and kill all the orcs for me. After receiving the order from the Goblin Patriarch, the flame dragon roared across the sky. The eyes of all the black silhouettes looked at the half-orcs with extreme hatred, as if these half-orcs were their inherent worst enemy. 433 on that fluid hand, a long sword had already appeared at this time. At the half-orcs, he started to attack. But immediately, a huge figure blocked these black shadow legions. Cain looked at the Sombra regiments in world-destroying armor. Immediately, a huge flame erupted from the right hand of Shishiji's armor. The flames were thousands of meters long, shooting back and forth continuously, enveloping those black figures. Like snowflakes hitting the scorching sun, these black figures suddenly melted away. The melted black liquid sizzled on the ground like it was cooked by heat, and burned out a very unpleasant smell. However, the flame launcher of World War II armor belongs to the longer the firing time, the higher the temperature it can reach. The earth around the armor of the world has already begun to melt out of magma, and all the black shadow legions are melted in this magma. The gods such as Su Siming couldn't help being surprised when they saw this scene. The temperature was so high that it melted the earth. Cain looked at the melted magma lake, and then used the freezing shotgun to freeze the magma lake. A path was opened specifically for the orcs. Afterwards, Cain pressed the button of the magnetic bomb. A magnetic bomb suddenly appeared among the coalition forces of the dwarf elves and the deity race. The infinite magnetism attracted the metal on those races. Some races were directly attached to the bomb, getting smaller and smaller, and flying in flesh and blood. Countless flesh and blood were squeezed out from the gaps between the iron objects, the blood was flowing, and it looked extremely oozing. More and more metals. Boom! The magnetic bomb exploded instantly when it reached the critical point. The shock wave of the explosion lifted everything around. And those metals directly became shrapnel and generally began to explode in the coalition forces. These shrapnel carried extremely violent impact, like a bullet that had passed through any obstacle blocking the way. Almost in an instant, this magnetic bomb directly destroyed the 50,000 coalition forces of the falling star empire. Seeing this scene, Su Siming's deity here couldn't help but start to be speechless. Good guy, this thing is too powerful. At this time, the flame dragon also swooped down from the sky, and the sharp blades on its claws shone with cold light. When the sharp claws touched the world-destroying armor, there was a toothless metal crash. Stab pull. A shallow white mark was directly drawn on the armor of the world. But as the metal fluctuated, Mishi's armor instantly remained intact. What? It's a memory alloy. The Goblin Patriarch exclaimed. The deity of Su Siming's side was also extremely shocked when he heard the term memory alloy. This is in the black market, but a ton of metal that can sell millions of coins at sky-high prices. Unexpectedly, this world-destroying armor was made of this kind of metal. But thinking of Ada, the level of the artifact of world destruction armor, these gods are relieved. After all, it is an artifact. At this time, the flame dragon Poros was already fighting with Cain. Cain had already turned on the flight energy of world-destroying armor at this time. The world-destroying armor, which can reach Mach 100 per hour, makes the flame dragon look like a monkey. And the flame dragon breath spit out by the flame dragon was directly converted into a vital energy shield by that world extinction armor. The more you fight, the thicker the armor of the world destruction. As time passed, an attractive black hole appeared on the left hand of Cain's armor. This is the black hole that the Shadow Strike device converted into by absorbing the fire dragon's attack. Go! Cain yelled, and the black hole was directly thrown on the flame dragon. The extremely powerful attraction began to explode on the flame dragon. The first to bear the brunt is the Goblin Patriarch. Without the slightest resistance at all, he was sucked into the small black hole. And the flame dragon also lost the control of the Goblin Patriarch in an instant. But the black hole was too small to cause any effective damage to the flame dragon. Gradually, small black holes dissipate after absorbing the surrounding things. Without enough mass, it is impossible to continue to form a black hole. After losing control, the flame dragon whirled back and forth in the sky with confused eyes. After tens of thousands of years of electroshock therapy, this dragon has already become mentally ill. Now that he has lost control, he is completely dependent on the dragon's instinct to act. The extremely ferocious aura radiated from this flame dragon. That is a complete ferocious beast aura. Roar. The roar of the dragon shook the earth. It is more powerful than when the Goblin Patriarch controlled it. Then the flame dragon, regardless of the enemy in us, breathed out the flame dragon's breath endlessly on the earth. At this time, all things in the world are enemies in its eyes. An enemy that must be destroyed. Only in this way can it rebuild its dragon kingdom. The flame dragon was immersed in its own spiritual imagination at this time, and at this time it had become the ruler of the world. Cain looked at the mad flame dragon and took out the dragon hunting crossbow from his pocket. Then he looked at the black tower among the orcs. He used the world-destroying armor to receive the black tower in front of him, took out the dragon hunting crossbow and gave it to him. Black tower, after I fight with the dragon, I aim at its heart scales, so that I can completely kill the dragon. Haida is also a little excited. After all, the power of this dragon hunting crossbow was always in his eyes. Yes, foster father, promise to complete the mission. Okay, go on you. Yes. Chapter 81. Looking at the flame dragon Poros, Cain directly controlled the world-destroying armor to leap on the flame dragon's back. The flame dragon suddenly felt its body sink, then spread its wings and flew directly to the top of the sky. But Cain wouldn't make this flame dragon so easy. Controlling the world-destroying armor, directly punched the spine of the pair of flame dragons with his right hand. Roar! The flame dragon roared, and the whole body began to fall downward. But immediately, with a roar, the dragon whisper magic barrier appeared at this time, directly repelling Cain's world-destroying armor. The magic barrier is a fire attribute, which can not only defend against enemies, but also cause burning damage to surrounding enemies. Cain left directly from the dragon. Afterwards, Cain directly released the frozen shock gun in the air. Wow! A strong freezing shock covered the flame dragon. The collision between ice and fire formed countless air conditioning in the sky, and the moisture in the air also gathered on the barrier of the flame dragon. Gradually, a layer of ice appeared outside the flame barrier. This ice layer is getting thicker and thicker, and the flame dragon can no longer support its flight. Boom. The flame dragon hit a deep pit directly on the ground. Roar. The flame dragon started a low roar in the pit, and continued to struggle there. At this time, the dragon language magic flame barrier had also been smashed. Cain took the opportunity to ride on the flame dragon, and began to smash against him with punch after punch. The flame dragon struggled frantically. Billowing smoke and dust billowed on the ground. But his power is like a cat versus a tiger to the destroyer armor. At this moment, an invisible arrow directly penetrated the scales of the flame dragon's heart and sank in. In an instant, the flame dragon felt the pain in his chest that he hadn't felt in his entire life. The power that broke out at that moment even smashed Cain's world-destroying armor. But in the end, the death and belonging of the flame dragon arrived. Its heart has stopped beating, only some muscles and nerves are shaking unconsciously. Cain controlled the world-destroying armor and dragged the flame dragon's tail to walk on the battlefield. All the races began to retreat unconsciously after seeing it. The earth-shattering battle just now made everyone see the power of Cain. The Dwarf King and the Elf Queen had given up their thoughts of resistance at this time. There is no way to resist. And the gods on Su Siming's side finally lost. Who would have thought that Chen Yi actually got this ultimate weapon? In the end, all the gods sent their races back to their planes. And they also answered the chaos beyond the crystal wall of the plane. The war of plane invasion came to an end at this moment. And all the teachers also know. The first place has been determined. This is Chen Yi from Class 10. But for this result, everyone can accept it. After all, Chen Yi's strength is obvious to all. First place is also expected. But Chen Yi was now in love with the corpse of the flame dragon. Such a big dragon corpse is full of treasures. Dragon blood can be used for alchemy and enchantment, dragon scales can be used to make armor, dragon horns can be used to make long bows, dragon tendons can be used to make bowstrings, dragon flesh can be eaten to permanently increase strength and physique, etc. With such a dragon corpse, Chen Yi made a lot of money. Afterwards, Chen Yi teleported the dragon corpse back to his plane and placed it directly on the skull maze. After all, even if this flame dragon dies, its body will remain active for hundreds of years, and the fire elemental aura in its entire body will also change the surrounding environment. The destroying armor was also directly transmitted to the side. The remaining power of the flame dragon can be absorbed by the world-destroying armor. Chen Yi used half-orcs to unearth countless mineral resources on the plane of Stigmata, and all of them were teleported back to the plane of Harvest. Those minerals were piled up almost half of the plane, forming one after another mine. After all, after the invasion of the plane is over, the Stigmata plane will be sealed by the school. Chen Yi couldn't get any more benefits from this Stigmata plane. It's a little bit while I can catch a little bit now. Maybe the main plane waits for a few decades, and the school will give it to the students of that class as the material for plane invasion. After a brief farewell, all the Tauren have also been teleported back to the plane of Harvest at this time. After all, this is their base camp. After more than 10 years of war, all the Tauren have become warriors who have experienced many battles, and their faces are full of vicissitudes. As for the Tauren people who stayed behind, only a dozen months have passed. Seeing these Tauren berserkers, I was full of curiosity about their experience. They moved forward and asked them what they experienced in Otherworld. More than 10 years of military and horse career is enough for these Tauren to brag for a lifetime. On the Stigmata plane, the Orc Empire had completely conquered the entire plane. The rest of the races all became vassal races of the Orcs. Post-war reconstruction is extremely important. King Tao's also started this huge project. Talos served as the commander-in-chief. In order to get better treatment for their offspring, some humans and orcs began to marry. Give birth to countless orcs. It is conceivable that as time passes on the plane of Stigmata in the future, the number of half-orcs will increase, and pure-blooded humans and orcs will disappear in history or become a minority group. Chen Yi has become the only sect in the entire continent because of his harvest god cult, and the belief value he receives every day is also extremely terrifying. Although most of these believers are pan-believers, they don't pray once every few days, but with a huge base, Chen Yi can quickly gather his divine power. Now Chen Yi's supernatural power has reached more than 300 points. And it will continue to increase in the future. This is already an astronomical figure for Chen Yi, who is only a student. Of course, after the Stigmata plane is sealed, faith will disappear with the multiplication of generations. Perhaps 10,000 years after the Stigmata plane has passed, the cult of the harvest god will become a line of handwriting in historical documents. Therefore, Chen Yi still has to develop his own plane. Only the plane of harvest is Chen Yi's greatest source of faith in the future. After getting everything in order, Chen Yi came into chaos. Class teacher Zhou Heji also clapped happily. Congratulations, Chen Yi, you won the first place in invasion of the plane. This is really making me face for class 10. Chen Yi smiled, a little embarrassed to be praised. There is no teacher. After all, his mind is only a 16-year-old boy. Chen Yi still feels a little embarrassed involuntarily when he accepts such a compliment. Zhou Heji patted Chen Yi on the shoulder. Okay, let's go back to school now. This time the reward for the first place is extremely rich. After speaking, Zhou Heji took Chen Yi back to school. On the school playground, all the students in the first year of high school had gathered here. Chen Yi was the last to come. All the high school students looked at Chen Yi with extremely complicated expressions in their eyes. Because the impression Chen Yi brought to them was too deep. On the stigmata plane, that called a god to block and kill the gods and Buddhas, and even let him find the ultimate weapon on the stigmata plane. This is simply too magical. After Chen Yi came to class 10, all the students began to applaud and cheer. But Huang Yilong looked at Chen Yi and couldn't help but dodge. After all, Chen Yi is too famous. He who originally wanted to continue working with Chen Yi had already lost his confidence. This is not on one level at all. Wang Kaishuan directly gave Chen Yi a big hug. Chen Yi, you really have you, but I heard those eliminated classmates say that you are very good at 433. Chen Yi smiled. Nothing, just luck. Wang Kaishuan hammered Chen Yi's chest. What luck, it's all strength, and awards will be given next. Yes, Chen Yi then looked at the podium. This conference was held for the award ceremony, and awards were awarded according to the number of believers. The main reward is the top 10. At this time, the name of Chen Yi had been called out on the podium. The first place in the new plane invasion, Chen Yi, came up to accept the award. After Chen Yi heard it, he walked up. At this time, the award-giving teacher took out a fire-red gorgeous scepter, which was inlaid with an extremely gorgeous fire-red gem. Congratulations, classmate Chen Yi. Then the teacher handed the scepter into Chen Yi's hand. Chen Yi felt very heavy after taking it. This scepter was the Vulcan scepter. It looks really good. Thank you, teacher. After Chen Yi finished speaking, he took the Vulcan scepter in his hand and walked off the stage. Then there was a huge applause from the whole freshmen. Everyone worships the strong. The performance of Chen Yi's invasion in the plane is undoubtedly the performance of the strong. Even if Chen Yi eliminated some of them, he won their respect. After walking down, the teacher called the second person's name. Second place in the new plane invasion, Sui Tang, come up to accept the award. At this moment, Sui Tang walked up directly. Chen Yi was a little surprised after seeing Sui Tang. Originally, he thought it was Su Siming who would get second. But I didn't expect it to be Sui Tang. But thinking of the continuous wars over the years, Sui Tang, as the god of war, was able to harvest so many believers. After receiving 3 resource cards, Sui Tang walked down. When I walked down, I was looking at Chen Yi. The look in his eyes is obviously still worried about Chen Yi's elimination of her. But Chen Yi would not get used to her. The corner of his mouth smiled indifferently. Turn a blind eye to the threat in her eyes. Chen Yi was not interested in watching the next awards. Instead, he checked the attributes of the Vulcan scepter. Under the suppression of the main plane, the Vulcan scepter, which is an artifact, is better than a flashlight lighter. Therefore, Chen Yi directly put the Vulcan scepter on his plane of harvest. On the plane of harvest, the attributes of the Vulcan scepter were fully revealed. Vulcan scepter. Level. Artifact. Wearing requirements demigod. Strength bonus. 50,000. Physique bonus 10,000. Agility bonus 10,000. Dao 50,000. Special effect. Plus 50% strength. Plus 50% wisdom. Plus 35% physical resistance. Plus 35% magic resistance. Plus 50% to all damage. Scepter skill, destroy fire, infinite firepower, cloudy sun, fire elemental summon. Fire of destruction, summon the flames of the god of fire to cause a devastating blow to the enemy of 10,000 meters. Infinite firepower, the Vulcan gem on the Vulcan scepter will emit fire energy forever, endlessly. Huntian Yangyan. Release magic to all friendly forces including yourself, and make all attacks with blessed attacks of fire magic. The magic attack power is 150% of its own attack. Duration: 24 hours. Call of Fire Element. Summon the King of Fire Element to fight for you. Properties of the King of Fire Elements. Basic Strength, 300. Basic Quality, 400. Basic Agility, 1000. Basic Wisdom, 9000. Talent: Physical Immunity. Physical Immunity, immune to all physical damage. Skill: Proficient in Fire Magic. Fire Magic Proficiency: all fire magic can be used, and the power is increased by 100%. Chen Yi was attracted by the various bonuses at a glance. Various percentage bonuses, especially that plus 50% of all damage, contains a lot of things. For example, the Tauren's normal attacks can now be accompanied by magic wind blades and wild power to increase damage by 50%. But this plus 50% of all damage will not only add the damage of the normal attack, but also the damage of the magic wind blade, and the 50% damage of the attack will be added to the wild power. The conversion method is too complicated, but Chen Yi understands that this plus 50% of all damage is a real increase of 50% of his own strength. Good. And there is that unlimited firepower. Energy can be endless, which is worthy of the name of a magical tool. But Chen Yi's plane does not have a strong demigod, which is a bit embarrassing. At this time Chen Yi thought of the armor of the world. Although there are still many sun spars on his own plane, there is always a day to run out. If this Vulcan scepter is used as an energy source for destroying the armor, I don't know if it will work. Thinking of this, Chen Yi was agitated. If it can be used as the energy source for the armor of the world, then there will be no need to worry about energy in the future. In the future, with this world-destroying armor, his advantage will be greater and greater. Thinking of this, Chen Yi issued an oracle to Cain. Let them put the Vulcan scepter into the energy center of the world destruction armor. Those 500 Tauren berserkers have learned a lot of dwarf science and technology, so they are good at making extinction bombs and magnetic bombs. And the work of repairing the armor of the world is of the kind that is handy. Cain had already taken the Fire 0.0 God Scepter at this time, and came to the energy center of the world-destroying armor. This Vulcan power is extremely hot, and it has not reached the demigod Cain, and can only be reluctantly enjoyed. Not to mention using this Vulcan scepter. Those who were familiar with the road opened the energy center of the extinct armor, and the remaining Tauren cleared out the solar spar inside. After the ground was cleaned up, Cain placed the Vulcan scepter in the center of the energy room. Immediately, a strong light emerged. At this time, the eyes of world destruction armor glowed with a huge golden red light. The combination of Vulcan scepter and world-destroying armor is finished. Suddenly, among the Tauren, there was a huge cheer. And Chen Yi also felt an unprecedented sense of satisfaction at this time. World-destroying armor and Vulcan power, this will be a tireless killing weapon. And here on the main plane, the awards meeting is now nearing its end. Chen Yi has also recovered consciousness from the plane of harvest. After this invasion is over, the next is a rare vacation. However, Chen Yi decided to light the sacred fire first, and then relax. As the conference ended, Wang Kaixuan came to Chen Yi at this time. Chen Yi, where are you going to play this holiday? Chen Yi shook his head. I haven't figured it out yet. I want to light a sacred fire before talking. Wang Kaixuan's eyes widened when he heard it. I'm going. Chen Yi, are you going to start lighting a sacred fire? Chen Yi nodded. This time I gained a lot of divine power on the stigmata plane, and then I'm going to start lighting the divine fire. Upon hearing Chen Yi's words, Wang Kaixuan was full of envy. I really envy you. After you light the sacred fire, come to the plain of Tianyan to find me. The scenery there is beautiful. Chen Yi nodded. He knows the plain of the day. It is a plain full of beautiful things. Whether it is race, plant, animal, landscape, etc. All are extremely beautiful, and it is also rich in a kind of charm elves, whose looks and figure are extremely beautiful. Attracted many male gods to travel there. It is said that the owner of the Yan Plain that day was a high-ranking god. Relying on this heavenly plane, obtained a lot of sacred coins. Divine currency is the currency of the main plane. A little power can be exchanged for 1,000 sacred coins. However, because of the exchange rate of various places, some places may only be exchanged for 900 sacred coins and 800 sacred coins with a little power. The rewards that Chen Yi received before, the plain expansion card alone is worth 1,000,000 sacred coins. This is why Chen Yi stayed in school. The resources given by the school are hard to obtain even after a lifetime of poverty. And when it comes to university, more resources are given. Chen Yi then said goodbye to Wang Kaishuan, and then returned to the dormitory. After arriving at the dormitory, after eating some food that could last for a long time without being hungry, Chen Yi immersed himself in the plain of harvest. Now, he is about to light a sacred fire. At this time of the harvest plain, the Tauren people are living and working in peace and contentment here. The plain opened up by the previous plain expansion card is now full of mountains of large and small ore. And that world-destroying armor and flame dragon corpse were now in the middle of the mine. Those Kodo beasts had also been migrated to a woodland long ago, where they were temporarily recuperating. Once Chen Yi ignites the fire, the entire plain will begin to expand violently. The pattern of the entire plain will change drastically. Subsequently, Chen Yi lowered the oracle. Tell all Tauren to get everything ready, the future plain will begin to change drastically. The original house may collapse, and the river water rolls down and the lake tides are light. There will even be earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Everything will change again. So Chen Yi prepared these Tauren for disaster. After receiving Chen Yi's oracle, Cain immediately greeted all the Tauren and began to pack food and clothing to escape to the open space. There are now 10,980 Tauren on the plain of harvest. Find a suitable place for refuge. Now the Tauren have a strong ability to survive, even if they haven't been farming for 10 years, they won't starve to death. The most is to control the population. But Chen Yi will not let this happen. After all, the more the population, the more faith will be. After igniting the sacred fire, the expansion of the plain, the Tauren people can recover their vitality in almost a year. After all, it wasn't the small tribe of 300 people before. Chen Yi looked at the option to ignite the sacred fire in the God Plane, and then clicked Ignite. At the same time 100 points of supernatural power disappeared. And Chen Yi also felt intense pain in his body on the main plane. This is the divine power transforming Chen Yi's body. After igniting the sacred fire, you will advance from a demigod to a lower god. The divine body will be stronger than before. Although it is a lower god, it is also a true god. The difference between a demigod and a true deity is not even a star and a half. At this time, the great changes in the plane of harvest have also begun. The sky began to widen, the earth began to tear, rivers and lakes began to expand to the Yangtze River and the sea, and various animals, plants and insects continued to spring up like bamboo shoots after a rain. And those mines have sunk into the ground, forming a series of mine veins deeply buried in the earth, and the number has become even larger. At this time the entire space began to sublimate. Especially the ginkgo tree, at this time, is constantly exuding elemental aura, and that elemental aura has formed a wave of elemental frenzy between the heaven and the earth. The wind is blowing on the plane of harvest. But the elemental power of the plane of harvest has become stronger and stronger. Become more suitable for the survival of the mage career. Cain controlled the world-destroying armor and led the Tauren people to begin their continuous migration. The upheaval of the earth left them no place to stand. However, Cain's world-destruction armor was able to resolve some crises well, and none of the Tauren people died. Finally, the sky and the earth calmed down. The transformation of Chen Yi's divine body is also directly completed. He couldn't wait, and clicked on the God interface. I want to see what changes have taken place now. Deity interface. Name, Chen Yi. God name, Asathos. Title, God of Harvest. God order, Lower God. Power, the power of harvest, unlimited evolution. Power of harvest. No matter what resources your believers harvest, they can achieve a bumper harvest. Infinite evolution. Your race can evolve infinitely, it can consume divine power to evolve basic attributes, and it can also consume divine power to advance the race talent. Divine power. 289. Ignite the sacred fire. It has been ignited. Condensed Godhead, not condensed. Requires 10,000 supernatural powers. Construction of the kingdom of God, not constructed. Required 1,000,000 supernatural power. Sect, harvest God sect. Sacred emblem of sect. 2 very full ears of wheat cross on the sickle. Pope Cain. Divine Art Wild Fury, First Tier, Wild Force, First Tier, Reign of Life, Inactive. Believers Tauren. Faith 91,879. Each million points of faith can condense 1 point of divine power. God's Domain, the Plain of Harvest. Area 10,000 square kilometers. Climate temperate tropical. Topography plains 30%, mountains 30%, woodlands 5%, depressions 2%, lakes 13%, rivers 8%, karst caves 1%, basins 10%. Soil 25% of black soil, 50% of brown soil, 5% of saline soil, 10% of alpine soil, and 10% of lithological soil. Animals 23 species of invertebrates, 134 species of vertebrates, 67 species of fish, 88 species of cartilage, 49 species of bones, 19 species of amphibians, 76 species of reptiles, 69 species of birds, 35 species of mammals. There are 198 species of protozoa, 122 species of mollusks, and 297 species of arthropods. Plants 89 species of gymnosperms, 67 species of angiosperms, 78 species of ferns, 32 species of algae, 77 species of bryophytes, and 147 species of fungi. Minerals iron ore, copper ore, silver ore, coal, rock ore, tungsten ore, gold ore, lead ore, zinc ore, aluminum ore, titanium ore. Special resource Sunspar Mine. Special building Underground Labyrinth. Special plant Wanian ginkgo. Element concentration 21%. Introduction: the plane where plains and lakes coexist can develop planting, animal husbandry, fishery, and mining 433, and has a perfect ecological chain. It is in the temperate tropics and is suitable for planting crops all year round. With sufficient element concentration, you can also train mage arms. Protoss Tauren. Hero Cain, Black Tower. Race attribute. Basic strength 200. Basic physique 200. Basic agility 150. Basic wisdom 150. Basic lifespan 60 years old. Quantity 10,980. Talents: Master Planting, Blood of Rage, Bullfighting Body, Power of Power, Soul of Ancestor. Explanation: a Tauren with extremely strong and comprehensive physical fitness, no matter what occupation he can do. Farmer 800, Hunter 30, Chef 70, Blacksmith 40, Tailor 70, Pharmacy 45, Miner 240, Lumberjack 140, Architect 90, Enchanter 21, Arms Interface, Arms Berserker 500, Advanced Arms none, Mount Race, Race Kodo. Basic Strength 150, Basic Physique 300, Basic Agility 105, Basic Wisdom 1, Talent: Hardworking, Quantity 145. Introduction: a very hardworking race that can be used for transportation and as a mount. The first thing Chen Yi noticed was the infinite evolutionary power. At this time, this infinite evolutionary power can actually evolve talent. This incident directly excited Chen Yi. If the talent can be evolved, the upper limit of the Tauren will become stronger. Afterwards, Chen Yi looked at the talent of Tauren's Master Planting Master. I don't know if this Master Planter can evolve. After all, this is the original racial talent of the Tauren. And this Master Planter can quickly upgrade food resources, which is very important to the current Tauren. Afterwards, Chen Yi started the infinite evolution, and then a reminder came from his ear. Record: the evolutionary planting master will spend 100 points of supernatural power, whether it has evolved. Evolution, of course, is evolution. Then a bright light appeared in the sky, covering all the Tauren in it. The Tauren felt that his soul seemed to have been changed. There is hope for everything at this moment. At the same time, the brain has a reasonable plan for everything around it, and it is clearer how to go next. Chen Yi also received the information record here. Record: your Tauren talent planting master is advanced to survival master. Survival master: no matter in any environment, the Tauren can always find a suitable way to survive. This, Chen Yi was a little surprised. This talent is much stronger than that Master Planter. The Master Planter can only take effect when farming, and the Master of Survival can take effect all the time. It is equivalent to a Special Forces king who is born to be proficient in various survival skills. Even a Tauren kid can live well if he is thrown into the wild. And then, Chen Yi began to open the sect interface. It's time to activate the last magic, the Rain of Life. It takes 100 points of divine power to activate the Rain of Life, and he now has 189 points of divine power left, which is more than enough to activate the Rain of Life. Sect, Harvest God Sect. Sacred emblem of Sect, 2 extremely plump ears of wheat cross on the sickle. Pope, Cain. Divine Art, Wild Fury, 1st tier, Wild Force, 1st tier, Rain of Life, 1st tier. Rain of Life, it immediately restores 40% of its maximum vitality, and then is immune to all physical controls. Each attack will restore 10% of its maximum vitality for 60 seconds. Can be used once a day. Believers, Tauren. Faith, 91,879, each million points of faith can condense 1 point of divine power. Seeing the Rain of Life, Chen Yi suddenly felt that this combined with the passive talent of the Berserker was too strong. The effect of the attack restoring its own vitality can almost make the Tauren Berserker the king of battery life. Definitely be able to beat and cry enemies of the same level. This is a fight and no death, but a high attack. Afterwards, Chen Yi set his sights on the Berserker's advanced arms branch. After all, now that he is already a lower god, advanced arms can make his strength stronger. This Berserker can advance to 3 arms in total, namely, the Bloodthirsty Berserker, the Slaughter Berserker, and the Conquering Berserker. This Bloodthirsty Berserker Chen Yi didn't consider it, because the talent after the advancement conflicts with the Rain of Life. Bloodthirsty is also a talent for restoring one's life in battle. Overlay is useless, but the Slaughter Berserker will have an extra 2-handed weapon proficiency talent, can use 2 weapons, and can stack the attacks of the weapons. But Chen Yi is not so passionate about slaughtering the Berserkers. After all, his Tauren uses the long-handled battle axe well, so he doesn't need to blindly pursue 2-handed weapons. And in the end, only the Conquering Berserkers are left. The extra talent that the Conquering Berserkers has is the Power of Conquering. The Power of Conquering is a buff skill. After blessing yourself, every blow can knock the enemy into the air and cause damage. It will cause double damage to enemies in the air. The duration is 30 seconds. Within these 30 seconds, facing the enemy who conquered the Berserker, he would be so depressed that he would vomit blood. Thinking of this, Chen Yi opened an advanced stage. Only with 100,000 faith points can a Berserker be promoted to a Conquering Berserker. Chen Yi still has 89 divine powers. After re-exchanging 50 divine powers into faith points, he advanced the 500 Tauren fierce battles to conquer the Berserkers. Now Chen Yi only has 39 supernatural powers left. The profession of Cain Shaman can be advanced in 2 directions. One direction is Voodoo Shaman, and the other direction is Natural Shaman. The Voodoo Shaman represents a simple primitive belief and is synonymous with Rongji, and the totem is the symbol of their belief and the source of their power. Through totems, not only can you gain the power to heal your allies, but you can also confuse the enemy's mind. Turn the totem into a target of mockery and distract the enemy in the battle. Praying can also bestow primitive and wild power to warriors in the tribe. The Natural Shaman is a profession that manipulates the power of natural elements. The earth, sky, storm, lightning, rain, flame, etc. are all natural shamans' attack methods. There is a kind of affinity with nature that is similar to that of blood. You can see all things through the flow of wind, and you can also hear distant sounds from the earth. Even if they are thousands of miles away, they can know everything. Chen Yi thought for a long time. In the end, it was decided to change Cain into a Voodoo Shaman. After all, Natural Shaman is mainly magic attack, but the professional characteristic of Voodoo Shaman is auxiliary. In future battles with other gods, this auxiliary method is extremely important. Can improve the ability of the entire group. Subsequently, Chen Yi spent 10 points of supernatural power to advance Cain into a Voodoo Shaman. Cain's attributes also appeared in front of Chen Yi at this time. Name: Cain, Hero. Race: Tauren. Occupation: Voodoo Shaman. Strength: 450. Physique: 500. Agility: 3,250. Wisdom: 250. Lifespan: 120 years old. Equipment: Crown of Bones. Skills: Healing Totem, Taunting Totem, Viper Guardian, Bloodthirsty Mania. Healing Totem: summon a healing totem from the front. Within a radius of 200 meters, it can restore 5% of the maximum vitality of the friendly army every second for 10 minutes. Bone Crown Effect. Change to 400 meters, restore 10% of maximum vitality per second, lasts 20 minutes. How Good Jiao Taking Totem. Summon a sturdy taunting totem. The totem will become the most disgusting enemy in this life in the eyes of the enemy, lasting for 1 hour. Bone Crown Effect. The duration is changed to 2 hours. Viper Guard. Summon 10 powerful snake-shaped totems to attack the enemy. The attack power is 80% of Kane's own attack power, and the duration is 10 minutes. Bone Crown Effect. Summon 20 snake-shaped totems whose attack power is 160% of their own attack power. Duration 20 minutes. Bloodthirsty Frenzy. Kane increases the attack power of all allies by 40%, and increases the attack speed and movement speed by 80%. The duration is 5 minutes. Bone Crown Effect. Increases overall attack power by 80%, speed increases by 160%, duration 10 minutes. Talents. Master of Survival, Blood of Rage, Bullfighting Body, Power of Attraction, Soul of Ancestor. Introduction. The chief of the Tauren tribe, the pillar of all people's beliefs, the most powerful Tauren shaman. Kane's current support ability is extremely powerful. The improvement for the entire Conquering Legion is extremely huge. It is conceivable that the Legion of Conquest with Kane is absolutely invincible. Chen Yi has already strengthened all the things that can be strengthened after lighting the sacred fire. Now only the Tauren, who was on the Plain of Harvest, was rebuilt after the disaster. At this time, the Harvest Plain has been expanded 10 times, which is completely different from before. The place where the Tauren camp is located is now covered by a high mountain. The house is directly buried deep underground. But Kane and the others have brought enough tools and food. In addition, the previously planted grains are all intact, so there is no need to worry about the grains. It only takes 3 months to rebuild all the facilities of the previous Tauren camp. But Kane didn't want to build tents or cabins anymore. He wants to build a city. Previously on the plain of Stigmata, he was very discouraged for the city of Kane built by the human kingdom. I have long wanted to return to the Plain of Harvest and build Tauren's own city. Coupled with the existence of world-destroying armor, it is possible to build huge cities. 437 Kane began to pick the plains. The plain before has become a high mountain at this time, and it is no longer suitable for the Tauren to survive. Driving the World War II armor, Kane chose a plain that was extremely suitable for building a city. The layout is roughly the same as the previous Tauren camp. The south is black soil, suitable for planting, the north is high mountains, suitable for quarrying, the east is lake, and the west is woodland. At this time, the area of the lake has expanded 7 or 8 times. It is extremely rich in aquatic products and is an excellent source of food. On the plain, there were originally lions, hyenas, elephants and other creatures. But Kane directly drove these animals out and drove them into the western woodland. Hoo. Kane used the flame launcher to burn all the small plants, poisonous insects and small animals in the plain. All that was left was a clean flat ground. The flat land that Kane burned out was about 10 million square meters in area, occupying 1% of the entire plain. The built city is large enough to accommodate millions of people. At this time the Tauren tribe has also come here. They all broke out a great deal in the mouths of those Tauren warriors, the cities of Otherworld are so developed and so civilized. In contrast, they lived as savages. Now that the city is being built, it is also to make my life more comfortable. The first thing to be built is the foundation of the entire city, and underground drainage pipes must be built. Otherwise, it will rain heavily in the future and the whole city will be a water city. All the stones used to build the foundation were done by Kane. Cut those hard rocks into generally large cuboids or cubes, and lay them on the foundation of the entire city. The giant rock that built the city wall was also piled up by cutting huge cuboid rocks under the control of Kane's extinction armor. These rocks are absolutely impossible to complete with human power. Only Kane's world-destroying armor can be completed. 4 huge walls rose from the ground, measuring more than 30 meters in length, and even more than 10 meters thick. There is a huge gate in the middle of every city wall. These gates look very burly, and people are as small as an ant in front of them. It can be said that it is impossible for any army in the cold weapon age to break this city. Over time, big and small facilities and houses were also built by Tauren people in the city. Mills, blacksmith shops, tailor shops, military camps, libraries, baths, markets, houses, palaces, etc. All the infrastructure was built strictly in accordance with the royal city of the Tieni Empire on the Stigmata Plain. It can be said that living in this city will be extremely comfortable. The emergence of the market also transformed the Tauren tribe from public ownership to private ownership. There is no currency issued yet, and the way to trade goods is to barter. After 3 full years of continuous construction, Tauren City was finally completed. On the day of completion, Cain directly allocated housing and land for all Tauren families. It is completely divided according to the head. Now the number of Tauren is not very large, everyone can be allocated a house and 10 acres of land. The annual output of this 10 mu of land is 20,000 catties, which is enough to feed more than a dozen Tauren people. Although the land was privately owned, Cain did not divide those similar to vegetable plots, farms, fisheries, mills, enchanting rooms, and libraries. Everyone will consciously go to maintain and harvest. Tauren's moral standards are very high now, everyone is altruistic. When a group is all altruistic people, without selfish people, the power that can burst out is the greatest. But once there is a Tauren with selfish genes, it will be a devastating blow to this group. Within a few generations, resources will be taken by this Tauren with selfish genes. But there is a god in the plane of harvest. Once Chen Yi discovered such a Tauren, it was a thunder that struck him to death, and the selfish gene of the province was passed down. After all, the gene of selfishness affects faith very much. Selfishness means thinking about yourself more and thinking less about God. Naturally, faith is gone. After the Tauren was busy with all this, Chen Yi lowered the oracle and began to split and dismember the flame dragon with all his strength. The corpse of the flame dragon was still lying on the maze of skeletons. Although it will not lose its activity in a short time, it is not a problem to put it here. The first is bloodletting. The previous gusting crossbow bolt blocked the heart, and no blood flowed out. The first one to pass is the enchanter. The enchanter has already built a reservoir that can keep the blood active. This reservoir depicts a lot of enchanting runes. All are runes that represent vitality. Through a big tube, began to draw blood from the huge flame dragon corpse. In the end, so much dragon blood was drawn for a whole swimming pool. These dragon blood are enough to keep alive for thousands of years. And it is an excellent material for depicting enchanted runes. The power of the runes drawn will increase by more than half. After the blood is drained, the next step is to peel the skin. The job of peeling the skin was naturally handed over to Cain's destroying armor. This dragon skin is very useful. Not only can you make dragon skin armor, but you can also make dragon skin drums. The dragon skin drum made has the sound of dragon chanting, which can be used to deter enemies. Because the flame dragon was too huge, what Cain used was to split the dragon skin piece by piece. In the end, the dragon skin dries and puts out a small hill in the warehouse. The rest of the dismemberment work is also in full swing at this time. Cain was dividing the dragon meat at this time. At this time, all Tauren began to line up here to receive. The dragon meat of this flame dragon is extremely delicious, and it tastes like eating the most delicate, mellow, strong and soft meat in the world. So Cain decided to share it with the whole family. And the most delicious piece of meat, Cain is going to keep it, preparing a grand sacrifice for Chen Yi, the god of harvest. At this time, all the Tauren were standing on the central square of the city. A huge statue stands in the central square. The statue is 60 meters high and is the most majestic building in the entire city. The statue is carved strictly in accordance with the image of Chen Yi, and is the highest and most sacred place for all Tauren sacrifices. Cain, on the other hand, stood on the floor of the square paved with white stone and began to pray there. Praise you, the great god of harvest. Asathos. Our Father God of the Tauren. It is your presence that allows us to thrive in this land. Cain had raised his battle axe at this time. The Tauren below also knelt all over the square, muttering to himself, praying continuously there. We will offer you the dragon meat of the flame dragon. It is your gift to make our material so abundant. Praise you, God of harvest. May the world take your name as holy. After speaking, a grand prayer sounded. Tens of thousands of Tauren looked at Chen Yi's statue with pious eyes. That is their faith, the sacredness of their hearts. And next is the gluttonous carnival of the Tauren people. Thousands of tables were moved to the square, Tauren sitting at the tables, and the dragon meat processed by the chefs quickly brought them up. Roasted dragon meat, grilled dragon meat, fried dragon meat, candled dragon meat, fried dragon meat, etc. A strange fragrance spread across the square. The Tauren people eat extremely fragrant, full of oil. If you are tired, eat some ginkgo biloba or drink some fruit wine to relieve your tiredness. Chen Yi looked at those Tauren eating so fragrant, and wanted to taste it. But the supernatural power needed to transport the dragon flesh to the main position is really too much. Full of 18 points of supernatural power is required. This is why the various resources of the main plane are so expensive. After all, it can only be transmitted here after the actual divine power is consumed. Chen Yi couldn't bear these supernatural powers. The blessing of my own harvest god is not as good as the blessing of these believers. Chen Yi also asked Cain to make a symbolic sacrifice, and then let him eat that piece of flesh by himself. Chen Yi also received the record here. Record, your Tauren held a grand sacrifice for you. Record, your Tauren provided you with 1.28 million belief points. Record, your Tauren race had a dragon meat feast. Record, some Tauren of your Tauren race have been strengthened, and their strength is +10. Record, some Tauren of your Tauren race have been strengthened, and the fire resistance is +30%. The dragon can't be eaten in one time. In the following days, Chen Yi can always get the evolutionary record of this Tauren family. Record, some of your Tauren races have been strengthened, and their physical resistance has increased by 10%. Record, some Tauren of your Tauren race have been strengthened, and the attack speed is increased by 35%. Record, some Tauren of your Tauren race have been strengthened, and their blocking ability increased by 40%. Record, some Tauren of your Tauren race have been strengthened, and the interruption ability has increased by 80%. The Tauren and the Tauren are not the same, and their digestive abilities are also different, so their evolution is also different. But this kind of reinforcement cannot be passed on to future generations. It is not like Chen Yi's power, which is completely changed from the genetic level. However, such a strengthening has also brought the current Tauren's overall strength to a higher level. Then, according to Chen Yi's oracle, 2 defensive weapons were made. Dragon Battle Crossbow. This is a giant crossbow specially used to defend the city. It just so happens that the flame dragon has 2 horns, which can be used to make 2 dragon crossbows. The reason why Chen Yi issued such an order is mainly because in the college entrance examination, there will be countless races invading his plane. And Vulcan scepter and world-destroying armor are not needed if they are not used. Because guarding the city with artifacts will deduct points. Otherwise, those students who came from wealthy families only need a few artifacts from their families to easily pass the college entrance examination. If some restrictions are not set, the college entrance examination will completely lose its fairness. There are many other restrictions, but in addition to the world-destroying armor and the Vulcan scepter, the remaining restrictions are not for Chen Yi. After all, Chen Yi's Tauren is already strong enough. Chen Yi does not need the help of artifacts. After receiving Chen Yi's order, Cain immediately began the manufacture of this dragon crossbow. Saw off the 2 dragon horns, and pulled out the 2 dragon tendons of the flame dragon. In the hot environment, the craftsman who made the crossbow machine carefully made the 2 dragon horns into pieces. Piece by piece was transported to the wall, and the assembly was started on the wall. On Cain's side, he started concocting the dragon tendons with the blacksmiths. The concocted dragon tendons have improved their toughness and durability to several levels. In the end, the dragon crossbow was completed. Dragon crossbow. Level: giant weapon for defending the city. Range: 5,000 meters. Special effects: the fired crossbow arrows will have fire magic attacks. 2 dragon battle crossbows were arranged at the southeast and southwest corners. There is a high mountain to the north, so there is no need to set up too many weapons guards. After all, if the enemy overcame the mountain, the archer alone would be able to annihilate these enemies halfway through the mountain. This dragon crossbow has a very long range and amazing attack power. Cain ordered another 2,000 giant crossbow arrows. 1,000 in the southeast and southwest corners. The body of this crossbow arrow is made of tungsten steel, and the arrow is polished by sun spar. After the fire attribute blessing of the dragon crossbow, shooting into the crowd can not only produce a strong impact but also a violent explosion. Used to defend the city, it is the most suitable. The dragon is full of treasures. The dragon scales and the dragon skin were concocted together, and now only the keel bones are still useless. As for this keel, Chen Yi has no idea yet. Is it boiled bone soup? After all, the dragon leather armor has been able to provide enough defense, and it will not affect the activities of the Tauren. The keel has a variety of irregular shapes, and it is difficult to make a weapon. In this way, it is still cost-effective to boil bone soup. Finally, Chen Yi issued the oracle. Make a cauldron. Irregular, unformable keel is used to heat keel soup. The flat keel is to make all the keel shields. Chen Yi has decided to continue to transfer 500 heavy shield soldiers. It's not enough to conquer the berserker's attack, you must have enough defense. Chen Yi selected 500 adult Tauren who strengthened their ability to resist interruptions. The ability to resist interruption is extremely important for heavy shield infantry. Then a strong light fell from the sky, shrouded the 500 adult Tauren inside, and began to transform them. In the end, the transformation of these 500 Tauren was completed. The physique of the body has been strengthened a lot. Become a heavy shield infantry, strength plus 50, physique plus 100. At the same time learn the skills defensive posture and shield shock counterattack. The talent is more I am a shield this talent. Chen Yi then checked the attributes of the heavy shield infantry. Tauren heavy shield infantry. Attribute bonus, strength plus 50, constitution plus 100. Talent increase, I am a shield. Skills, defensive posture, shield shock counterattack. I am a shield in battle, 447 can jump directly in front of a friendly army to hold a shield for it. After use, it will gain immunity control effect for 10 seconds and 30% damage reduction effect. Defensive stance, hold the shield to start the defensive posture, and you will get 50% damage reduction for frontal attacks. Shield shock counterattack. After being attacked, it will directly counter shock damage, causing 50% of its own attack, and knocking it back slightly, which has a certain chance to make it stunned. This is the power bestowed after becoming a unit. Chen Yi's current supernatural power is only 49 points left. It takes 50 points of supernatural power to convert these heavy shield infantry into advanced arms. At this time, the big pot built by the Tauren began to boil continuously. Inside are some shapeless keels. These keels are used as scraps and have no value except for the stew. After all, even if it is a knife, 7 arrows and the like, there are better choices. The keel's defense is very strong, but the attack will not work. It is difficult to grind sharp edges and corners. And the keel soup contains a lot of essence. After drinking it, it is no different from eating dragon meat. Therefore, in Chen Yi's ears, the Tauren's enhanced information records continued to be heard. Cain made a grand sacrifice to this event. All Tauren are grateful for Chen Yi's gift. Chen Yi also got his wish and obtained more than 800,000 faith points. On the Stigmata Plain, someone has been offering sacrifices to Chen Yi. 100,000 faith points can be obtained every day. Chen Yi's 50-point supernatural power was finally gathered. As for the 3 branches of heavy shield infantry that can be advanced, Chen Yi has also carefully considered. The first one is the heavy shield defender, and the extra talent is perseverance. On the basis of the attribute bonus of the heavy shield infantry, an additional 100 points of physique are added. Persevere, when you set up a shield, you will increase your base defense power by 100% and magic resistance by 10%, and you will restore your life force by 1% every second. With other skills, defense power will reach a terrifying point. The second is the heavy shield dominator, the extra talent is dominance. An additional 50 points of strength and 50 points of physique are added. Dominance, setting up the shield will reduce the attack of all enemies within 10 meters by 20%, and increase the attack power of allies by 20%. This is a half-tan and half-assisted arms. Since Chen Yi already had Cain, an extremely powerful auxiliary hero, he didn't consider it. And the third one is the heavy shield blood warrior. Additional 100 points of strength. Extra talent bloody battle. Blood battle. After abandoning the shield, its own attack power will increase by 80%, and its attack speed will increase by 80%. This unit has completely abandoned its defense and completely converted to offense. But it has also caused the heavy shield infantry to lose its original characteristics. Chen Yi already has a conquering berserker, and he doesn't need this bloody warrior. In the final decision, the defender is the best. Then the 500 heavy shield infantry were directly advanced into defenders. After becoming a defender, the physique of those Tauren gained an additional 100 points. The body has become stronger and more stamina. Chen Yi then opened the class interface. Arms interface. Arms Berserker 0, Heavy Shield Infantry 0. Advanced Arms Conquer Berserker 500, Heavy Shield Defender 500. Conquer the Berserker. Basic Strength 200 plus 100. Basic Constitution 200 plus 100. Basic Agility 150 plus 50. Basic Wisdom 150. Talent Rage, Blood, Fury, and Conquering Power. Skills Whirlwind, Heavy Blow. Heavy Shield Defender. Basic Strength 200 plus 50. Basic Constitution 200 plus 200. Basic Agility 150. Basic Wisdom 150. Talent as a shield, I stick to 0. Skill, Defensive Posture, Shield Shock Counterattack. Now the strength of Chen Yi's arms has reached a peak state. However, the price Chen Yi paid was to completely consume his divine power. Now there is really no more drop. If you want to continue to advance the arms, you can only wait for Chen Yi to be promoted to the middle god. At this time these Tauren soldiers were all living in the barracks. You only need to exercise skills every day. Fighting instinct is not something that divine power can bestow, but these Tauren should be honestly practiced here. And then, Kane's work here is only to smelt those mithril and magic grain steel and make dragon skin armor and keel shields. Everything is in order. Chen Yi immediately took his gaze back from the plane of harvest. There is no need to deliberately drop oracles to arrange work. What Chen Yi has to do now is to find Wang Kaixuan on the plane of Yan. This time is really tired. Chen Yi also wants to relax. With the god coins he had accumulated, Chen Yi went out. To go to the portal to the plane of Tianyan, you need 1000 god coins to activate it once. Chen Yi coexisted 9000 god coins, enough to go back and forth. And Chen Yi also wants to see if there are any resources suitable for the development of Tauren on the plane of regeneration. After all, most of the resources of one's own harvest plane, 0.0 are ordinary resources. That is, the Sun Spar Mine and the Wanian Ginkgo tree are better. After going out from school, he paid 1 sacred coin to take a taxi, and then proceeded to the portal to the plane of Tianyan. Chen Yi took out his cell phone and made a video call to Wang Kaixuan who was on the plane of Tianyan. At the beginning of the global shock, these high-tech products were also transformed by the gods of science and technology into existences that adapt to the rules of this world. The mobile phone can cross hundreds of millions of chaotic planes to get in touch with each other. The rules of supernatural power are incomprehensible to Chen Yi now. Soon, the video call was connected. At this time, Wang Kaixuan was sitting on a sandy beach basking in the sun, holding in one hand a charming fairy with beautiful skin and beautiful appearance. After seeing Chen Yi, Wang Kaixuan quickly got up. Chen Yi, have you ignited the sacred fire now? Chen Yi nodded. It was a positive answer to Wang Kaixuan. I'm jealous. Wang Kaixuan was full of envy, and the girl in his arms was not fragrant anymore. Then Chen Yi, come on, there are so many beautiful women in the face of Yantai today, and there are also many other interesting things. Hearing these words, Chen nodded. I'll be there in about a day, and I'll meet again at that time. It's so mocking. After speaking, the two hung up the video call. In the end, Chen Yi came to the temples that connected hundreds of millions of planes. These temples are full of people coming and going, most of them are gods who have graduated or have not been admitted to college. Came to these temples to be able to go to other planes to obtain some rare resources to survive. But the level of each world is different, so the price that needs to be paid is also different. Just like the Tianyan plane that Chen Yi went to, most of them were to relax and have fun, by the way to buy something on the black market opened by the Lord God. So the price is very cheap. As long as 1000 magic coins. The rest of the planes are different, some planes are extremely dangerous, the world level is extremely high, and there are even ancient gods born in the world. A plane like this can cost tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, or even millions. But the benefits of this are obvious. That is, the resources that can be obtained are also extremely large. For some deities who have lost school resources to cultivate, this is already the best choice. And behind these temples is the empire. The empire also took these gods into consideration and set up temples of the gods. Let these incompetitive bottom layers also have a chance to climb up. Therefore, many high-level gods from the bottom and even powerhouses at the main god level were born. Chen Yi came to the registration office, and after handing in 1,000 sacred coins, he received a ticket and came to the world channel that was teleported to the Tianyan plain. After checking the ticket, the staff let Chen Yi walk into the passage of this world. Then Chen Yi felt that the scenery around the world had changed. What Chen Yi showed before his eyes was a beautiful world. At this time Chen Yi was in a valley, and gods were sent from the temples from time to time beside him. Here, the suppression of the main plane disappeared, and Chen Yi completely released the power belonging to the lower gods. The surrounding deities are also the same, but most of them are demigods, and there are very few lower-level gods, and some middle-level upper-level gods pass by from time to time. Chen Yi flew into the air and found that the plane of heaven is indeed like a paradise. Then, Chen Yi's cell phone rang, which was a video call of Wang Kaixuan. After answering the phone, Wang Kaixuan was drinking in a bar at this time. Seeing the scene behind Chen Yi, he said with excitement, "Chen Yi, you are finally here now. I will send you the position. Come here, the black market here is about to open." Hearing Wang Kaixuan's words, Chen Yi was also a little surprised. Unexpectedly, the market opened when I first came. It's really early to come as a coincidence. Okay, wait for me there. After Chen Yi finished, he flew directly to the location sent by Wang Kaixuan. I have to say that the plane of the sky is really beautiful. Crossing the golden coastline and coming to land, large areas of rape blossoms form a beautiful setting. In the air, there is a faint fragrance tangy. At this time, the aurora surrounded Chen Yi's body, and the surrounding mountains and rivers were as beautiful as a fantasy. Soon, Chen Yi came to the place where Wang Kaixuan was. Here is a plateau, a city is firmly protected in an enchantment. Chen Yi walked along the main road and quickly found the bar. And Wang Kaixuan was holding a bottle of wine there, swaying to the rhythm of the music. There were also two young ladies in black leather jackets who followed and swayed together. It's really depraved. Chen Yi shook his head, then walked to Wang Kaixuan's side. Triumphantly, I am coming. Wang Kaixuan saw Chen Yi's face with surprise, and then gave Chen Yi a big hug. Chen, you can count it. Afterwards, Wang Kaixuan took out a few 100 gods and directly stuffed them to the two leather ladies just now, waved them and sent them away. Let's go, the black market has 3 hours to officially open. Let's go now. After speaking, he took Chen Yi out of the bar. Chen Yi followed Wang Kaixuan and walked to the north of the city. During this period, Wang Kaixuan told Chen Yi that deities cannot fly at will in the city. Otherwise it will be easy to attract city guards. No one will touch this mildew ignorantly. Obviously, this is not the first time that Wang Kaixuan walked along the familiar road. After walking for about half an hour, Chen Yi saw a square. On this square, there are many gods who are setting up stalls. The market has not yet opened, so everything is in the preparation stage. And this black market is divided into 3 layers. This square is the first floor, selling some common or rare resources. And there is a second floor below the square. On the second level, the preciousness of the sold items will be on the next level. There are even sales of legendary races. As for the third layer, when Wang Kaixuan said it, he was referring to the sky. There was a building floating on that day named Kunxing Pavilion. This is where the third layer of the black market is located. The resource races sold are things that only middle-level gods and upper-level gods can afford. Chen Yi just listened to it for fun. Now he can use only 7,000 magic coins. Buying a rare plant seed or something, and improving the environment of your plane 450 is already very good. The other Chen Yi didn't want to. Over time, the black market has also opened. Wang Kaixuan wanted to buy something on the second floor of the basement, while Chen Yi wanted to buy it on the square. The two separated here. Chen Yi wandered around the square alone. After all, it is the first time to come here. Chen Yi is still very novel. Those god stalls were filled with races, resource ores, plant seeds, etc. that were wrapped in divine power. Just like small bubbles, the races wrapped in them can temporarily survive in them. However, there are no resource cards on these booths. Resource cards are something that only upper gods can make. These stall owners do not have a high-level god, and can only use this simplest method to sell the resources of their own plane. At this moment, a booth full of people attracted Chen Yi's attention. Chen Yi squeezed in and found that the stall owner did not directly sell the resources. Instead, various resources are sealed in small boxes one by one. This box can avoid the prying eyes of the deity's consciousness, making people wonder what is in it. At this time, Chen Yi also saw the rules inside from a sign next to the booth. When you open the blind box, every time you open 5,000 magic coins, you can open anything. Once opened, it will not be refunded. Around this stall owner are some young deities. They all looked like students, and they didn't know which city came from. This blind box fully aroused the curiosity of these students. It's just addictive to drive. A student has opened more than a dozen blind boxes one after another at this time, but each time it is a common race, or a few tons of ore. But then a cheer came. Rare pet race civet. After hearing this sentence, the rest of the students looked at the lucky man. At this time, a group of white cats are staying in the magical bubble, looking extremely cute. Seeing this scene, the students exploded. This pet race is a special race that can increase the happiness of the race. With this pet race, you can make your plane race happy all day long. And it is a rare civet. These civets will sell for 40 to 50,000 sacred coins. A blind box of 5,000 god coins directly earned nearly 10 times. I went, and sure enough there was something good, and the boss gave me 3 more. I want it too. Subsequently, the blind boxes on the booth were sold out. The stall owner smiled, and put out rows of blind boxes on the stall. And the students who bought the blind box sighed. Because there are no resources above the normal level in these blind boxes. It seems that the civet that was driven out just now is just a dream. Chen Yi also saw the trick of the stall owner. The blind box is to earn the money of these young students. It is even possible that the person who drove the rare civet just now was the trust of the stall owner. It is to grasp the student's mentality of being small and broad. Just kidding, how can a buyer have a good seller? Chen Yi's heart moved at this moment. Because in a blind box, he felt a very kind fluctuation. This kind of fluctuation is in perfect harmony with his harvest power. Thinking of this, Chen Yi took out 5,000 magic coins. Boss, bring me a blind box. The stall owner smiled after seeing it. It's so mocking, let's take it. No, I will take it myself. After Chen Yi finished speaking, he took a blind box at the feet of the stall owner into his hand. The stall owner's expression changed immediately, but he immediately suppressed his expression. After Chen Yi saw it, he immediately felt that his guess was true. The stall owner definitely knows which blind box contains good things. Chen Yi took the blind box and opened it on the spot. An emerald green gem appeared in the blind box at this time. Some students around who knew this gem suddenly exclaimed, "Green, rising gem." The rest of the students also gathered around, looking enviously at the gem in Chen Yi's hand. Chen Yi then used his divine power to identify the gem. Green ascending gems. Level: none. Introduction: most of the gems containing unknown plant seeds are above the epic level. Chen Yi casually stuffed the gems into his pocket. As soon as the breath of the lower god was revealed, the surrounding students who were still demigods also dispersed quietly and interestingly. Chen Yi continued to stroll around the square. Now he still has 2,000 sacred coins that are useless, thinking about buying a pet race of normal level for the Tauren. After all, happiness is also very important. Finally, Chen Yi stopped at a booth. The stall owner looked at Chen Yi. "Why, are you interested?" Chen Yi nodded. Then it pointed to a magic bubble on the booth. "How much is it?" There is a group of puppies sleeping in divine power bubble. Smart dog. Level: ordinary. Basic strength: 6. Basic physique: 8. Basic agility: 9. Basic wisdom: 2. Talent: smart and smart. Smart. Introduction. Compared with ordinary puppies, it is very smart, can understand the owner's instructions, and looks very cute. Seeing Chen Yi's eyes on his pet race, the stall owner immediately stretched out a finger. 10,000 sacred coins, no bargaining. Chen Yi frowned when he heard it. I only have 2,000 god coins to use, but I didn't expect the main price of this stall to be so cruel. Seeing Chen Yi frowning, the stall owner immediately said, "Don't look at what I sell so expensive, look at how smart and healthy my smart dog is. Isn't buying a race just for a healthy one?" Chen Yi also extended a finger afterwards. 1,000 sacred coins, can you sell it? The stall owner suddenly put away his smile. "Brother, you are bargaining too hard. I have lost money for this 1,000 sacred coins, and I will definitely not be able to sell it." Chen Yi saw this, he pulled out his leg and was ready to leave. Seeing Chen Yi about to leave, the stall owner quickly said, 5,000 sacred coins, how about 5,000 sacred coins, you can't find such a price in other stalls. Chen Yi then turned around and returned to the front of the push. "Be real, how much is it?" Seeing Chen Yi like this, the stall owner sighed. "Carrot, you gotta, I will give it to my friend today, 3,000 sacred coins, for you." Chen Yi still shook his head. *1500 sacred coins, it's up to you to say if it works. Quote. Hearing what Chen Yi said, the stall owner sighed again. "I'll open it today, and 2,000 magic coins will sell you. If you still don't agree, go somewhere else." Chen Yi nodded directly when he saw this stall owner. "Okay, 2,000 magic coins." After speaking, Chen Yi took the money in one hand and the goods in the other. "Put those clever dogs in his pockets. When the rest of the work is over, put this verdant ascending gem lily and the dog to the plane of harvest." At this time, Wang Kaixuan had already bought something and came out of the second basement. Looking at Chen Yi, he then asked, "How is it, are you ready?" Chen Yi nodded. "Okay, how about yours?" Wang Kaixuan smiled. "I bought a rare mount race for my wingman, which is a subdragon species of highly poisonous flying dragon. Although this race doesn't have many dragon Li's blood, but my wing people have it and they are even more powerful." Wang Kaixuan smiled at this moment. "Okay, now that I have finished buying, let me pick you up." After speaking, Wang Kaixuan took Chen Yi to one of the most luxurious hotels in the city. After the two of them ate and drank, Chen Yi found an excuse to leave. Wang Kaixuan was so obsessed with the drink that he slept directly in that hotel. Now he only has the money for the return trip, and he has no money to stay in the hotel. Chen Yi then flew in Yan continent on this day for a while, and then found a cave to rest there. Now Chen Yi, as the next god, is very comfortable wherever he lives. Because he was an orphan since he was a child, Chen Yi's self-esteem is very strong. He can't do it by asking a friend. Leaning on the wall of the cave, looking at the silver moon in the sky, Chen Yi then immersed his consciousness on the plane of harvest. Now he is going to use that green ascending gem to be smart and dog. At this time, Chen Yi first put the clever dog on the plane of harvest. Groups of puppies appeared on the grass outside the Tauren city. There are 107 clever dogs. Chen Yi lowered the oracle. This smart dog is a pet specially prepared for them, so that it can treat them alive. After receiving the oracle, Cain led people to the meadow where the group of cute dogs were. Wow, the clever dogs were not afraid of people, wagging their tails and ran towards Cain and the others. When the Tauren people saw this scene, their hearts couldn't help but arouse their affection. "This puppy looks too cute." Looking at the clever dog who gets along with the Tauren so happily, Chen Yi laughed with satisfaction. Then used the supernatural power in the body to open the green ascending gem. A lotus-like light emerged, and a dazzling seed floated out of it. Seeing this scene, Chen Yi directly began to appraise. He wanted to see what kind of plant seed it was. Then, the kind of panel appeared in front of Chen Yi. Tree of Life. Level. Epic. Stage. Seed. Special effects. Improve soil quality. Unlocked during germination. Special effect. Improve 450 air. Unlocked during growth period. Special effects. Wind of Life. Unlocked in adulthood. Special effects. Life Fairy. Unlocked at the peak period. Improve soil quality. The Tree of Life will subtly change the soil quality of the surrounding soil, and eventually turn into elemental spiritual soil. Improve the air. The tree of life will exude the breath of improving the surrounding air, and the lifespan will be greatly increased when living in this kind of air. Wind of life. After adulthood, the tree of life will form the wind of life around the body, which greatly increases the concentration of elements on the plane. Life fairy. After the Lord of Life reaches the peak state, the fruit of life will be born, and the fruit of life will be eaten when it is immature to increase lifespan. If it is mature, the fairy of life will be born in the fruit. The life fairy will look for an overlord guardian to greatly increase the host's life recovery speed. Chen Yi saw the panel of the tree of life and couldn't help being surprised. This tree of life is too strong. This time I am not at a loss. Chen Yi then looked at the entire harvest plain. Want to see where is suitable for the survival of this tree of life. After thinking about it, Chen Yi decided that the small island in the center of the lake to the east of Tauren City was the best. There is no shortage of water and soil here, and it occupies a very suitable terrain. In class before, the teacher said that high-level plants will swallow low-level plants. Low-grade plants will become nourishment for high-grade plants. And this ginkgo tree will be the best nourishment for the tree of life. Thinking of this, Chen Yi directly controlled the seed of the tree of life and cast it under the root of the ginkgo tree. The tree of life seeds quickly felt the changes in the surrounding environment and gradually began to germinate. At this time, the ginkgo tree had a simple intelligence, and it seemed that it felt threatened, and the branches began to sway wildly. But all this is of no avail. After all, it has no means of attack, and can only be swallowed by the tree of life. It was still a while before the tree of life swallowed the ginkgo tree, and Chen Yi had already withdrawn his consciousness from the plane of harvest. Leaning against the rock wall of the cave, Chen Yi then fell asleep deeply. The sun rose the next day. Chen Yi received a video call from Wang Kaishuan. Chen Yi, where did you go? Why did you leave without saying hello? My room was opened for you. Seeing Wang Kaishuan's question, Chen Yi gave a ha-ha. You were drunk yesterday and I wanted to see the night view, so I came here to see it. Then Chen Yi changed the subject. I'm going to play again today and I will go back, so I won't talk about it for now. Hang up after speaking. Wang Kaishuan couldn't help but smile wryly when he looked at the hung-up phone. My old classmate really wants face. But he didn't go to reveal it either. With Chen Yi's potential, the future will be unlimited. The current embarrassment, is only temporary. Chen Yi was flying at this time and came to a sea of flowers. The Tianyan Plain not only has beautiful scenery, but also some rare resources can be found in some unmanned places. The owner of the plane of the sky didn't stop this. As long as it didn't cause any major damage to the plane of the sky, there would never be any punishment. At this time, Chen Yi felt a kind of extremely pure energy in the sea of flowers. This kind of energy seemed to make his harvest divine power begin to become active. There were no people around, so Chen looked for it carefully here. Finally, in the northeast corner of the sea of flowers, Chen Yi saw an extremely beautiful flower. The flower has 9 petals, and the color changes with the surrounding flowers. Chen Yi immediately used divine power to start the identification. Harvest flower. Equal order, rare. Special effect, all the plants growing around the harvest flower will be maximized. After Chen Yi saw it, he was very happy. If this harvest flower is transplanted to the harvest plane and cultivated, it is definitely the most suitable for one's own divine power. One's own divine power will be blessed by this harvest flower. Although there are few blessings, but being able to have such a beautiful flower on one's plane, it is also pleasing to the eye when I go to see it. Just when Chen Yi wanted to pick the flower off, a cold voice came from above. I want this flower. I don't know how much money it will cost. Then, a boy wearing a white short shirt flew down from the sky. Very refreshing short hair and flat head, looks extremely sunny. And Chen Yi discovered that this person's strength had actually ignited the divine fire and became the existence of the lower god. At this time the man looked at Chen Yi. What is your priesthood? How do I feel so kind? The god of harvest. Chen Yi's words are concise and concise. After hearing that Chen Yi is the god of harvest, the boy suddenly became excited. Fortunately to meet, I am really a fellow, my priesthood is the god of agriculture. After Chen Yi heard it, he was also a little surprised. I didn't expect that I could still meet colleagues here. The god of agriculture specializes in agriculture, and each of the plane races is also a master of agriculture. It is similar to Chen Yi's god of harvest. How much do you plan to buy? Hearing Chen Yi's words, the man suddenly said, 100,000, I will spend 100,000 sacred coins to buy you. What do you think of it? Chen Yi was a little surprised. This is just a relatively rare plant, with a market price of 30,000 or 40,000. How could this person pay such a high price? The man was smiling. This flower is of no use to me, it's just a nice picture to chase the goddess. After looking for it for a long time, I didn't expect to run into it here. Hearing what this person said, Chen Yi suddenly understood. It turned out to be a seed of infatuation. Okay, if that's the case, I'll sell it to you. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.